Chapter 898. Zi Yuan and Zhou Qin had made up their minds to go to Mount Longhu. Although Wan Hongling was a disciple of the Zhengyi school, she had been bullied a little harshly in the past. Therefore, when she heard that the two of them were going to Mount Longhu, she immediately said, Okay, let's go. Lin Miao was far inferior to the three of them in terms of seniority, and cultivation. In addition, it had been her idea before, so she didn't dare to say anything to stop them. She just looked at the three of them eagerly and said, Can you take me with you? Zi Yuan looked at Lin Miao and frowned. She thought that there might be some conflicts in this trip to the Zhengyi school, and Lin Miao's cultivation was too low. If there was really a conflict, she and Zhou Qin might not be able to protect themselves, let alone take care of Lin Miao. Zi Yuan was about to speak, but Zhou Qin rushed to say, Zi Yuan, let Lin Miao go. Her identity is special. Maybe it will have a miraculous effect. Zi Yuan's heart skipped a beat. She glanced at the golden-haired Lin Miao and nodded slowly. Okay, but don't talk too much when you go. Mount Longhu is not like other places. If you cause any trouble, we may not be able to protect you. Lin Miao's heart was in her throat. She finally relaxed and replied very seriously, Well, I just want to help a little. I also want Master to come back as soon as possible. Speaking of Li Yundong, Zi Yuan and Zhou Qin couldn't help but look at each other sadly. They couldn't help asking themselves countless times in their hearts, where on earth have Li Yundong and Su Chan gone? They were all cultivators, so they didn't stay for long. They rushed to Mount Longhu overnight. By the time they arrived, it was already early in the morning. Lin Miao was flying in the air with Zi Yuan, looking down at the wonderful scenery of green mountains and rivers. She saw that at the foot of the mountain, there was green water flowing slowly along the mountain and around the peaks, as if resting or in love with the scenery. The beach was white, and the pool was green. She was either talking softly or meditating quietly, like a beautiful and refined lady. Next to the green water were 99 peaks and 24 rocks. These peaks were filled with the softest water and the masculinity of the 99 dragons. From a distance, one could see that the ground was like holding a group of dragons and tigers. It was really majestic, like a tiger crouching and a dragon coiling. But looking closely, one could see that there was a refreshing green in the lush forest. It was full of spirituality. Even a rookie cultivator like her felt that her eyes would become much more comfortable with one more look, and her body would feel much more comfortable with one more breath of spiritual qi. This was the first time Lin Miao had come to this beautiful place. She couldn't help but be shocked by this wonderful scenery. She couldn't help but exclaim in a low voice, What a beautiful place, what a magnificent place. It's really incredible. She turned her head and said to Zi Yuan, I've been to many countries, but only China has such a magical and beautiful place. Now I finally understand why only China has Taoist cultivators like you, while other countries don't. Even though Zi Yuan's heart was heavy, she couldn't help but smile slightly. She said proudly, There are spiritual mountains and beautiful waters everywhere in China. As long as there is a green water Dan mountain, there will be Buddhist and Taoist cultivation fields. Such a place is full of spiritual qi and collects the essence of heaven and earth. It has the characteristics of 4 distinct seasons, and there is no suffering from the 4 seasons of cold, hot, and cold. I don't think there is such a cultivation place in foreign countries. Zhou Qin was born in an official family and had gone abroad many times since she was a child. She had been to many tourist attractions all over the world. She had been to most of the natural wonders that were praised by the world. But now that she thought about Zi Yuan's words, she couldn't help but nod and say, That's right. If we're talking about a place alone, there are actually other places that can be compared to Mount Longhu. However, there are so many spiritual mountains and secluded mansions in China that are concentrated in one country. I think if our country was full of white grass or grasslands, I'm afraid there wouldn't be such a magical Taoist cultivation sect, right? Lin Miao exclaimed in a low voice, God loves China. I hope the cultivators of this beautiful place can help us find our master. Zhou Qin sighed. I hope so. Ziyuan nodded and said, let's go down. Don't be rude and be laughed at. At this time, they landed together. As soon as they arrived at the ground of Mount Longhu, they met two Taoist priests in Taoist robes. Both of them were holding fly whisks and seemed to be chanting scriptures along the mountain, but in fact, they were patrolling. One of them was none other than the beautiful Zhang Lufang. Ziyuan stepped forward and bowed slightly. Amateus, please wait a moment, my fellow Taoists. Zhang Lufang turned her head and saw four beautiful women standing behind her. Except for Lin Miao, who she was unfamiliar with, she knew the other three. Zhang Lufang was shocked and immediately returned the greeting. She said cautiously, it's Zhenren Ziyuan. I'm so rude. I wonder why Zhenren Ziyuan is here. Zhang Lufang had unintentionally made a big mistake. As a result, Li Sen had been expelled from the sect and she had also been punished. However, her punishment was that Zhang Tianshi had ordered her to go to Zhang Kongyan's place to receive punishment. However, Zhang Kongyan was in seclusion at the moment, so she hadn't actually been punished. However, Zhang Lufang felt guilty, so she took the initiative to suggest that she follow her senior brothers and sisters to patrol the mountain. However, she hadn't expected that as soon as she patrolled the mountain, she would meet Ziyuan's group. Soon. Ziyuan knew that Zhang Lufang was from the Zhini school and had a good impression of them. She relaxed a little and said, we have an important matter to ask to see Zhenren Zhang Tianshi. Zhang Lufang asked curiously, you want to see the leader? He is in seclusion. I'm afraid that you will have made a wasted trip. Ziyuan said softly, we only have a few questions to ask Zhenren. We will leave after we ask. There's no need to trouble him. Zhang Lufang hesitated for a moment, then turned to the male Taoist beside her and said, Shixiang, what should we do? At this time, the Taoist's heart was beating violently, and his mind was almost empty. He didn't dare to raise his head and said in a panic, little Shimmy, you make the decision. Zhang Lufang had a strange look on her face. It's really strange. As a Shixiang, how can you let my little Shimmy make the decision? No, I don't make the decision. Otherwise, if something goes wrong, I will be blamed again. It's not easy for me to have a Shixiang, but he has been kicked out of the sect. If something happens, I will also be kicked out of the sect. What should I do? Ziyuan smiled slightly and stopped asking her. She turned to the male Taoist Shixiang and said, fellow Taoist, can you help me pass the message? The power of a beautiful woman was infinite, not to mention a fairy. The male Taoist had seen Ziyuan at the inauguration ceremony of Mount Longhu before. He had fallen in love with her at first sight. At this time, when he saw her again, he was so nervous that his heart almost jumped out of his throat. In addition, Zhou Qin, Wan Hongling, and Lin Miao, these three beautiful women were by his side. They were so beautiful that he didn't dare to lift his eyelids. The Shixiang hurriedly replied, okay, fellow Taoist Ziyuan, please come with me. As he spoke, he turned around and walked up the mountain. Zhang Lufang was a little tongue-tied as she watched from the side. She thought to herself, hey, are you serious? He wants you to pass a message. Why did you just take it directly? You don't have to be so lustful, do you? According to etiquette, the Taoist should have reported first and then formally led Ziyuan and the others up the mountain to visit Celestial Master Zhang after obtaining permission. However, Ziyuan hadn't expected that the Taoist would directly lead them up. She hesitated for a moment. Zhou Qin, who was beside her, immediately urged, what are you hesitating for? Follow him. Time waits for no one. Thinking of this, Ziyuan made up her mind and stepped forward to follow him. Although Zhang Lufang faintly felt that something was wrong, she had shirked all responsibility before. In any case, no matter how much blame was placed on her, she was happy to follow them leisurely. Zhang Lufang had seen Ziyuan, Zhou Qin, and Wan Hongling before, so after a few glances at them, she cast her eyes on Lin Miao. Because of Li Sen, she was not like many Chinese cultivators, who had great prejudice against foreign cultivators. Instead, she had a good impression of these golden-haired and blue-eyed cultivators. Zhang Lufang approached Lin Miao. She had once visited Li Yundong and seen Lin Miao standing next to him, so she said with a smile, "Hello, I seem to have seen you before. You are Li Wudi's disciple, aren't you?" Li Yundong had already become the #1 master in the world. His every word and deed had the spirit and bearing of a master of a generation. In daily life, he subtly influenced the people around him. Therefore, Lin Miao felt that she couldn't lose her master's face. In addition, she was from a big family, so her words and actions were quite like a lady from a noble family. She immediately bowed and said in a reserved manner, "My master is Li Yundong." Zhang Lufang saw that she was very fluent in Chinese, which was much better than the big-nosed Li senator. She couldn't help but sigh softly and say, "Ah, your Chinese is really good. It's much better than my silly Shirdi. It's a pity that he has been expelled from the sect. Otherwise, you would definitely have something to say when you saw him. Maybe you are from the same hometown." Lin Miao didn't know about Li Sen's experience. She smiled and said politely, "I wonder what your Shidi's name is? Where is he from? Maybe we really are from the same hometown." Zhang Lufang said faintly, His name is Li Senator. There is so much wood in his name. If it weren't for the lack of wood in the 5 elements, how could he have such a name?" Lin Miao just said it out of politeness, but she didn't expect to ask something that shocked her. Lin Miao suddenly trembled all over. She couldn't help but stretch out her hands and grab Zhang Lufang. She cried out involuntarily, "What did you say? Li Sen? John? Where is he?" Zhang Lufang looked at Lin Miao, tongue-tied. She hadn't expected that this blonde, blue-eyed, and polite beauty would lose her composure like this. She cried out, "You're hurting me." Although Lin Miao didn't have any spiritual power, she was also a reconstructed body of panacea, so she was very strong. She had lost her composure and squeezed hard, almost turning Zhang Liufang's 2 delicate arms purple. Lin Miao immediately let go of her hand and said apologetically, "I'm sorry, I was too excited. Is your Shirdi called Li Sen? Is he tall? Has curly golden hair? Does he look like a burly man?" Lin Miao described Li Sen's appearance to Zhang Lufang in detail. Every time she said a word, Zhang Lufang nodded, and the expression of surprise on her face became more and more serious. "You know Big Blockhead? Are you really from the same hometown as him?" At this time, Zhou Qin also turned around and asked curiously, "Zhenren Zhang Lufang, how do you know John?" No, Li Sen." Zhang Lufang smiled at her and said, "You can just call me Zhang Lufang. I'm not a Zhenren. I'm not good at fighting, but I'm good at causing trouble, he." As soon as she said this, Zhou Qin immediately thought of Su Chan. She smiled, and her favorable impression of Zhang Lufang suddenly doubled. At this time, Zhang Lufang told her how she had found Li Sen, how she had brought him back, and how he had become a disciple of the Zhini school. Zi Yuan listened carefully. Zi Yuan had been listening carefully. At the end, she understood a little. It turned out that during the inauguration ceremony, someone had faintly shouted in the crowd, as if he was speaking up for her. At that time, she was in the limelight, but she didn't pay attention. She didn't expect that person to be Li Senator at this time. Ziyuan couldn't help but turn around and ask, "How is Li Sen now?" Lin Miao couldn't wait to ask, "Yes, where is he?" Zhang Lufang told her what had happened later. She sighed softly and said, "It's all my fault. If I hadn't been so nosy, how could so many things have happened?" At this time, Ziyuan and Zhou Qin looked at each other. Only then did they understand why the 9th heaven divine night thunder had not killed the mystical silver fox. It was because of the coincidence between Li Sen and Zhang Lufang that the mystical silver fox had escaped. Because of this, Li Sen had been expelled from the Zhini school, and in the end, he had not been able to meet Lin Miao. At this time, the two of them sighed with emotion and shook their heads secretly. Ziyuan said softly, "We meet in the mountains and rivers. We are fellow Taoists. Where can we not meet again?" Lin Miao, you don't have to worry about him. I believe that Li Sen will have his own good fortune. Now that you know his whereabouts, you will definitely meet him again in the future. Lin Miao sighed softly and said, I hope so. Zi Yuan didn't expect that their group of people had originally wanted to find Li Yundong's whereabouts, but they had accidentally found out Li Sen's whereabouts. It was really unintentional. She sighed anxiously in her heart and said, I know Li Sen's whereabouts, but where is Li Yundong? I just came back from Nanjing with my wife. My back is aching. I'll try to write another chapter later. Chapter 899. Zi Yuan and the others inadvertently learned of Li Sen's whereabouts. Although Lin Miao wanted to find Li Sen and let him return to Li Yundong's side, Li Yundong's whereabouts were unknown now. As a disciple, she didn't dare to leave, so she could only suppress this idea for now. When Zi Yuan followed the male Taoist to the front of the Taoist master's mansion of the Zhengyi school, Zhou Ping, who was on duty outside, saw them and was shocked. Although her prejudice against Zi Yuan and the others was not as deep as before, she was really shocked to see them in the heart of the Zhengyi school. If Zi Yuan had come to Mount Longhu in the past, there would have been nothing to be surprised about. But now, Zi Yuan was an inner disciple of the Zhengyi school. She had started cultivating in her mother's womb. She was also a Thunder Retribution Master and the successor leader of the Linggong sect. Whether it was in terms of qualifications, seniority, or strength, she was a great master who could be on an equal footing with the leaders of all sects in China. Zhou Qin was also a Lightning Retribution Master, and she was Li Wudi's first disciple. In the future, she would definitely become an earth-shattering great cultivator. The two of them had come together. One could imagine how important they were. Even the Zhengyi school did not dare to underestimate them. These two great Thunder Tribulation experts appeared in front of Celestial Master Mansion without warning. If they were hostile, the consequences would be unimaginable. Zhou Ping first politely and reservedly bowed to Zi Yuan, Zhou Qin, and the others, then glared at Zhang Lufang and the Taoist priest who had led the way. She pulled them aside and scolded them in a low voice. What are you doing? What kind of people were they now? How could they be casually released like this? What are they doing here? Zhang Lufang lowered her head and did not speak, but her eyes were rolling. She tried to look at the Shirdi next to her out of the corner of her eyes. At this time, the Shirdi also knew that he had done something wrong. He braced himself and said, I brought her up here. I saw that Jinren Zi Yuan was not an outsider, and she wanted to see the leader, so. Zhou Ping said angrily in a low voice, you also know to call her Jinren Zi Yuan? If she's not an outsider, why don't you call her senior sister Zi Yuan? She could see the sect leader whenever she wanted to. Do you think this is a market? You think you can come and go as you please? Zhang Lufang whispered, eldest senior sister, you don't have to say that, do you? I heard from Jinren Zi Yuan that there's a very urgent matter. Zhou Ping frowned secretly. Just as she was about to continue teaching Zhang Lufang a lesson, a voice came from the side. What's the matter? It was Zhang Ling who had heard the noise and walked over. YZ.com. When Zhang Ling saw Zi Yuan, Zhou Qin, and the others, she was also shocked. She stepped forward and winked at Zhou Ping, indicating that she should deal with these matters. She bowed to Zi Yuan, Zhou Qin, Wan Hongling, and Lin Miao, then said, Amateus, we meet again, Jinren Zi Yuan. What about Jinren Li? He should be busy dealing with the sealed mystical silver fox now, right? Zi Yuan felt a little uneasy. She returned the salute and said, to tell you the truth, we came here uninvited for this matter. Zhang Ling looked at her strangely and then said, sure enough, you don't come to the temple for nothing. What happened? Zi Yuan sighed softly and told her what had happened. Then she knelt down gracefully and kowtowed to the place where Celestial Master Zhang was cultivating in seclusion. She said, after thinking about it, we think that only Celestial Master Zhang is the most admirable in the cultivation world today. He can be said to be knowledgeable from ancient to modern times. He knows Chinese and Western things. He knows 2,000 years and 800 years. He will definitely be able to answer the doubts in our hearts. I think this matter is of great importance. It's not only related to the personal safety of Li Jiandong and Su Chan, but also the whereabouts of the mystical silver fox. I hope that Celestial Master Zhang will help us for the sake of the Buddha. During the inauguration ceremony, Zi Yuan had been under heavy pressure. She had never begged for mercy, let alone knelt down. But at this time, she bowed gracefully and prostrated herself on the ground. The others couldn't help sighing and pointing at her. Zhou Qin, who was standing to one side, saw her kowtow. Although she was a little reluctant, she still followed suit for the sake of her master. As soon as the two of them knelt down, Wan Hongling and Lin Miao had no choice but to kneel down as well. The four of them knelt on the ground in a row and begged in a low voice. Even Zhang Ling, who had a heart of stone, couldn't help but shake her head and soften her heart. She sighed in her heart, I didn't expect Zi Yuan to be as affectionate as her master. She could actually do such a thing for Li Jiandong. Zhang Ling was very proud. She judged others by herself. She felt that if she were Zi Yuan, she would never do such a thing. She admired her in her heart. Just as she was about to speak, she heard a gentle voice say, not for the sake of the monk, but for the sake of the Buddha. Zi Yuan, when did you convert to Buddhism? There was a hint of a smile in this sentence. Not only did it not sound abrupt, but it also made people feel close to her. Zi Yuan immediately raised her head and hurriedly asked, Leader Tianshi, have you agreed to help us? Zi Yuan's words were so fast that Celestial Master Zhang couldn't help but laugh. Do you still recognize me as the leader of the sect? You're going to be the leader yourself. Isn't it a little inappropriate for you to talk like this? Zi Yuan said softly, Zi Yuan has always been a disciple of the Zheni school, and the Linggong sect is also a branch of the Zheni school. We are all connected. What's wrong with that? Zhou Qin was listening to the conversation between Zi Yuan and Zhang Tianshi. She was thoughtful. She knew that with Zhang Tianshi's status, it was naturally impossible for him to speak carelessly. What he said was equivalent to letting Zi Yuan smoothly take over the position of the leader of the Linggong sect at the next inauguration ceremony. Moreover, he did not deny what he had said before, so she immediately followed up Zi Yuan's words and said, Zhang Tianshi, as the saying goes, helping others is helping yourself. The mystical silver fox is the public enemy of our cultivation world. I think Zhang Tianshi will not sit back and do nothing, will he? Zhang Tianshi smiled and said, You little girl, you don't have to use words to mock me. Do you think I can refuse such a high compliment? Zi Yuan, Zhou Qin, and the others were immediately overjoyed. They raised their heads one after another and looked in the direction of Zhang Tianshi's voice with joy. Zhang Tianshi said, Zi Yuan, take out your two powerful magical weapons and let me have a look. Without hesitation, Zi Yuan immediately took out the powerful magical weapon and placed it in front of him. She said, Please tell me. They opened their eyes wide and saw that Zhang Tianshi was nowhere to be seen. There was only a flash of cyan light, which was cast into the glass mirror of heaven. After a while, the glass mirror of heaven slowly floated above the purple gold luo pan. A beam of purple light suddenly shone from the purple gold luo pan, shining on the back of the glass mirror of heaven. In an instant, one picture after another appeared on the surface of the glass mirror of heaven. These pictures were the historical pictures recorded by the spirit mirror, from the beginning when Li Zichang created this powerful magical weapon, to the debate between Li Zichang and Ba Siba, to the cultivation of Ba Siba facing the spirit mirror and comprehending the mystery of time and space, and then to the successors of the spirit mirror. The people around the spirit mirror saw the pictures on the spirit mirror flash quickly, like a fast-paced scene in a movie. At this time, the picture changed, and it turned into the meeting between Zi Yuan and Li Jiandong. Then, Zi Yuan helped Li Jiandong resist the divine tribulation and destroyed the glass mirror of heaven. For a moment, everyone was silent, and the way they looked at Zi Yuan became somewhat complicated. Zhang Ling was even more enlightened. She thought to herself, no wonder Zi Yuan refused to say how this powerful magical weapon was damaged at the inauguration ceremony. It turns out that it was for Li Jiandong. It seems that the rumors about the two of them are not groundless. Even though Zi Yuan was calm and composed, she couldn't help but blush a little at this time. She just forced herself not to let the blush spread to her cheeks. Fortunately, the picture soon turned to the fierce battle between Li Jiandong and the others and the mystical silver fox. Then, the mystical silver fox was thrown into the purple-gold luo pan by the glass mirror of heaven. Soon, the souls of Li Jiandong and Su Chan were thrown into the purple-gold luo pan in the same way. At this time, Zi Yuan, Zhou Qin, and the others widened their eyes and saw it very clearly. Whether it was the mystical silver fox, Li Jiandong, or Su Chan, at the moment when they were about to be thrown into the purple-gold luo pan, a faint blue light immediately appeared around the purple-gold luo pan. As soon as this light touched the colorful light of the glass mirror of heaven, it immediately aroused a wave of ripples, shaking the surrounding air as if it was about to shatter. The figures of the mystical silver fox, Li Jiandong, and Su Chan disappeared in an instant. After reading it, Zi Yuan and Zhou Qin looked at each other. They vaguely felt that they had understood something, but they couldn't tell what it was exactly. Zi Yuan said helplessly, "Leader Tianshi, I've finished reading it. Please tell me." Tianshi Zhang chuckled and said, "Don't you understand after reading it? Jinrenli and this little fox demon have now jumped out of the three realms and are no longer in the five elements." This sentence mostly referred to cultivators who had ascended to immortality. Zi Yuan was shocked and couldn't help but say in a trembling voice, "Ah? Have they become immortals?" "No, no way." Zhou Qin's body was even colder. She said in shock, "Impossible, Master won't leave us like this. This is impossible." However, Tianshi Zhang smiled and said, "Did I say that they have become immortals? I just said that they have jumped out of the three realms and are no longer in the five elements. As for what this sentence means, you have to figure it out yourself." Zhou Qin couldn't help asking, Tianshi Zhang, explain it clearly. "We don't understand." Tianshi Zhang chuckled and said, "The secret of heaven can't be revealed. If you say too much, you will be punished by heaven. Immeasurable longevity and happiness." After that, there was no more sound. Zhou Qin exclaimed in unison, Hey, what does this mean?" Zhou Ping glared at her and shouted, "Jinren Zhou, pay attention to your tone and words. Who are you talking to?" Zhou Qin was furious and subconsciously wanted to glare back, but thinking that she had just asked for help, she had no choice but to swallow her anger and think quickly with a frown. Zi Yuan knelt on the ground in a daze. Zhang Ling couldn't help but sigh when she saw her helpless look. She tried to persuade her in a low voice, "Jinren Zi Yuan, please get up first. The leader has already given you the answer. The rest is up to you to figure it out yourself." Only then did Zi Yuan gradually come to her senses. She got up gracefully, and there was a large patch of dust on her knees. She was so clean that she didn't even notice it. She just walked away in a daze with Zhou Qin, Wan Hongling, and Lin Miao. After watching them go down the mountain, Zhang Ling couldn't help but come to the immortal cloud cave and ask, "Shirdi, what do you mean? Do you know where Li Jiandong and the others have gone?" After a while, Zhang Tianshi said leisurely, "So what if I know?" "So what if I don't?" Zhang Ling said, "Oh, this is a big deal related to dealing with the mystical silver fox. If you know, tell them quickly. I'm worried." Zhang Tianshi chuckled and said, "Just now, Zi Yuan said that I know about it for 2,000 years, but if it's something that happened after 2,000 years, I don't think I know about it. Then I can only let her find it herself." Zhang Ling was stunned and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She said, "No way, Shirdi, how old are you? Are you still acting like a child?" Zhang Tianshi didn't comment. He smiled slightly and said, "Everything has its retribution, and karma comes from the mouth. Heaven and earth can't measure themselves, and the true way can be comprehended from it. Shimmy, please go back. Although Zhang Ling was also a great cultivator with a high cultivation quotient, when she heard this, she felt embarrassed. She said, "Hey, what do you mean by, after 2,000 years? Hey, do you know about it or not?" But no matter what she said, Zhang Tianshi didn't say another word, leaving her alone to think hard. What does this mean? Does my Shirdi know about it or not? Chapter 900. Zi Yuan and the others were fooled by Zhang Tianshi and went down the mountain in a daze. When they arrived at the foot of the mountain, Zhou Qin said to Zi Yuan unwillingly, "Zi Yuan, what should we do now? This has jumped out of the 3 realms and is not in the 5 elements. What does it mean? No matter how I hear it, it sounds like Master has." As she spoke, she couldn't say the rest of her words, as if she was afraid that once she said it, it would become a prophecy. The reason why mortals were afraid of death was that death separated people from life and death forever. They were separated by 2 worlds and could never meet again. For cultivators, although ascension to immortality meant that a person had achieved positive results, it was not good news for those who were still cultivating hard in the mortal world, because it also meant that they and this person were separated by 2 worlds and it would be difficult for them to meet again. It was a nice way to say that a person had ascended to immortality and gone to the immortal world, but if they could never meet again, what was the difference between this person and being dead? At that time, the Zhini school had spread the news that Wang Yuanshan had ascended to immortality. After learning this news, Ao Wushuang's temperament had changed greatly. That was why she had been able to change from an innocent girl to a cold and quiet woman. Yan Fong had even endured hardships and lurked in the Fox Zen school in an attempt to take revenge. The reason for their change was very simple. It was because they knew that ascension was a nice way to say it, but the actual answer was that Wang Yuanshan was already dead. Zhou Qin was afraid that Li Yundong would be like Wang Yuanshan, ascending to immortality on the surface, but in fact, he was already dead. Zi Yuan was also right about what she was most worried about. Her face turned pale and she murmured in a low voice, "No, how can there be such a way to ascend in the world?" Since ancient times, whenever a cultivator ascended, there would be strange phenomena in heaven and earth. Whether it was an eminent monk passing away or a Taoist priest's corpse ascending, there would definitely be colorful clouds and rays of light. How could Li Yundong and Su Chan, who had disappeared for no reason, be ascending? But understanding the truth and whether people could accept and convince their hearts were 2 different things. Zhou Qin and Zi Yuan knew that this should not be a sign of ascension, but they always had this terrible guess hanging in their hearts, and it was difficult for them to let it go. The 2 of them were deeply in love with Li Yundong, and they had long been deeply involved in the game and could not extricate themselves from it. Usually, they were strange women whose hearts were thundering and whose faces were as calm as a lake. However, the people involved in the game could not see clearly. The 2 of them had come full of hope, but they had received a piece of news that they could not understand. This really made them confused, and their usual cleverness had flown beyond the clouds. However, Wan Hongling was still able to jump out at this time. She said tentatively, "Shiji, Zhou Qin, since Celestial Master Zhang has asked us to figure out what this sentence means by ourselves, there's no need for us to hang on to the tree of the Zhini school. Should we go to the other sects and ask?" Zhou Qin said bitterly, "Even Zhang Tianshi of the Zhini school doesn't know. Who else in the world would know?" Although Zhou Qin was quite prejudiced against the Zhini school, she also knew that Zhang in the south and Kong in the north. Whether she liked it or not, the Zhini school was the largest and oldest cultivation sect in the Chinese cultivation world, and Zhang Tianshi's lineage was the cultivation family with the longest history in the Chinese cultivation world. It had a history of nearly 2,000 years. In terms of foundation and bearing, there was no one in the world who could be more profound than them. If Celestial Master Zhang didn't know, then she really couldn't think of anyone else who would know. Wan Hongling looked at her strangely and said, "Aren't there still Buddhist cultivators? There may not be anyone more profound and knowledgeable than Zhang Tianshi in Taoism, but there must be someone in Buddhism, right? Maybe there are eminent monks in Buddhism who know what this sentence means?" This sentence suddenly woke Zhou Qin up from her dream. Zhou Qin clapped her hands and her eyes lit up. Yes, Hongling, what you said makes sense. Let's go. If we can't get anything out of the ox nose, let's go ask the bald monk. Strictly speaking, Zhou Qin was neither a Taoist nun nor a nun. Although she was also a cultivator, she didn't cut her hair to cultivate like the Buddhists, nor did she deliberately grow her hair to cultivate like the Taoist priests. She didn't rely on either side, so she didn't have a strong awe for Taoist priests or monks like Zi Yuan did. When she said this, Zi Yuan's heart was heavy, and she couldn't help but feel a little amused at this time. Zi Yuan glanced at Zhou Qin reproachfully and said in a low voice, Zhou Qin, if your heart is not sincere, then you won't be able to get any results. Buddhist cultivators are very sincere. Zhou Qin's face became solemn and she said seriously, I see. I will definitely respect all the masters very much later. After she finished speaking, she quickly frowned and said, but which master should we go to ask? Which master is good at Zen and dispelling mysteries? Wan Hongling chimed in, monks are all good at playing tricks, but among the 6 divine arts that monks cultivate, I think we should find someone who's proficient in the art of destiny, someone who can see through the secrets of the heavens. A simple-minded person would often look at a problem in a very simple manner. In some special situations, they would be able to hit the nail on the head. On the other hand, a person with a deep and complicated mind would sometimes be overcautious and overcautious. They would think of all sorts of things and would always want to take care of everything to achieve perfection. Zi Yuan had been thinking about the names of the famous eminent monks in the Buddhist cultivation world. She was going to visit them one by one. If the other party didn't help, she would beg them humbly. But she wasn't like Wan Hongling, whose first thought was to think of a great acquaintance. Wan Hongling said, look for Master Wu Hua. Didn't he predict the birth of the mystical silver fox? Zhou Qin and Zi Yuan were stunned at the same time. Ah. Master Wu Hua? Zhou Qin asked in surprise, that lascivious monk? Zi Yuan also blurted out, that flowery monk? After the two of them finished speaking, they immediately looked at each other, their expressions indescribably strange and wonderful. Zhou Qin frowned. Does this lascivious monk know Master's whereabouts? Zi Yuan's eyes were a little blank. She couldn't help but remember that she and Li Jiandong had gone to the red light district of Dongwu City to look for Master Wu Hua. The usually elegant fairy had a strange expression on her face. She said hesitantly, Can he really do it? At this time, Wan Hongling was very straightforward. Won't we know if we go and have a look? If he can't do it, we'll go to Master Purin and ask him again. Zhou Qin and Zi Yuan looked at each other. After thinking for a while, they nodded in unison and said, okay. Lin Miao didn't know who the lascivious monk they were talking about was at all. She was extremely curious. She just blinked her big blue eyes and looked at Zi Yuan and then at Zhou Qin. After they took her to Dongwu City, she asked Zi Yuan in a low voice, Zi Yuan, who is this Wu Hua? Is he a lecher? Zi Yuan glanced at Lin Miao and secretly admired her for knowing to use such elegant words as lecher to describe this lascivious monk. She was a gentleman and didn't like to gossip behind people's backs. After thinking for a while, she didn't know what to say. However, Zhou Qin, who was not far away, heard her and turned her head to say, lecher. You're really polite. As she said this, Zhou Qin told her about Master Wu Hua's glorious deeds. When she got to the part where Master Wu Hua said, I want Miss, Lin Miao almost laughed out loud. The blonde beauty burst into laughter in shock. She said in surprise, oh my God, how could there be such a lecherous monk? I heard that cultivators have a pure heart and few desires, don't they? Zhou Qin laughed and said, I'm just kidding. Wu Zetian's most famous gigolo in the Tang dynasty was a handsome monk named Shuai. Her daughter, Princess Taiping, also had a gigolo, who was also a monk. There are many Buddhist cultivators who practice Buddha of joy, and there are also many Taoists who practice yin and yang. You should know the most famous Taoist, Lu Dongbin, who is known as wine, sex, avarice, and anger. This immortal Lu is a romantic and elegant man. He has had countless women in his life. I can't finish talking about his romantic life for days and nights. Lin Miao was stunned when she heard this. She saw that there were so many beautiful women around Li Yundong, and almost every one of them was as beautiful as her. She was a famous campus belle at the University of Pennsylvania and the dream lover of all the boys in the school. Every boy who saw her would come forward to please her, but Li Yundong was the only one who had been treating her like a gentleman from beginning to end. When she saw Li Yundong like this, she thought that all the cultivators in the world were like Li Yundong. They were surrounded by flowers, but they were always clean. They were simply the contemporary Luxiaowi. But after hearing Zhou Qin's words, Lin Miao realized that the Chinese cultivation world was not like this at all. Zi Yuan saw that Lin Miao was stunned, as if she had a new understanding of the Chinese cultivation world. She quickly said, "In fact, it's not completely like that. Strictly speaking, these cultivators can be said to be experiential, but their cultivation methods are different. There are tens of thousands of cultivation methods in the world, and this is just one of them. As the saying goes, all roads lead to Rome. As long as one can cultivate to the peak in the end, any method is acceptable." Master Wu Hua's words and deeds are a little strange, but there is no doubt about his cultivation quotient. Zhou Qin thought that after all, she was asking for help. It seemed a little inappropriate to talk about people behind their backs. She didn't say anything more and turned her head away. Lin Miao asked curiously, "So this strange monk should be very capable?" Zi Yuan said seriously, "Master Wu Hua is a genius recognized by Buddhists as a once-in-a-50-year genius. His karmic cultivation has reached the pinnacle, so he can see through the secrets of heaven. I think this is why his words and deeds are a little strange." Only then did Lin Miao feel a little respect for the monk, and he became curious in his heart. When the group of people flew from Mount Longhu to Dongwu City, it was already afternoon. Zi Yuan and Zhou Qin took Ruan Hongling and Lin Miao. The four beautiful women went straight to Shiyuan Temple. As soon as they arrived at the door, Zi Yuan saw a young novice monk who was greeting guests and quickly walked over. Because there were many tourists around at this time, the young novice monk was so shocked that his eyes almost popped out when he saw Zi Yuan, a stunning beauty. When they walked in front of him, he suddenly came to his senses. He quickly put his palms together and lowered his head, not daring to look at Zi Yuan. Zi Yuan put her palms together and said to the young novice monk, "Shixiang, is Master Wu Hua here?" When the young novice monk heard this, his expression became even more strange. He squinted his eyes and saw a monk passing by. He quickly shouted, "Shixiang Fanning, come here quickly." This Fanning was none other than the monk who had led Li Yunyang and the others to Wu Hua before. Fanning walked over with a puzzled look on his face. He greeted Zi Yuan and the others and asked, "Zhenren, what's the matter?" The young novice monk quickly said, "These female benefactors are looking for Shixiang Wu Hua. Shixiang Fanning, take them there." As he said this, he ran away, as if he was afraid that he would be involved in this matter. Fanning was shocked. Looking at the young novice monk running away quickly, he stamped his feet and said angrily, "Hey, come back, come back." As he said this, he was about to chase after him, but Zhou Qin was waiting impatiently. Ignoring the tourists nearby, she grabbed his collar, raised her eyebrows, stared at him, and said in a low voice, "Take us to Wu Hua. If you refuse, I will shout that you molested her." As she said this, Zhou Qin pointed at Ruan Hongling behind her. Ruan Hongling was shocked. "Why me?" Zhou Qin turned around and glared at her. She mouthed silently, "Nonsense, is it me?" Ruan Hongling was flustered and exasperated. She was about to lose her temper and argue with Zhou Qin, but Zi Yuan pulled her and motioned for her not to speak. Ruan Hongling was so angry in her heart. "Good Shiji, you really sold me out for your lover. What a woman." Fanning was also shocked. "Zhenren Zhou, calm down. If you have something to say, let's talk it out. Buddha won't believe you if you talk nonsense like this. Zhou Qin smiled maliciously and said, it doesn't matter whether Buddha believes it or not, but I know that 80% of these people who burn incense and worship Buddha will believe it. As he said this, Fanning couldn't help looking to the side. Sure enough, he saw a group of onlookers who didn't know the truth widening their eyes. Some of them even turned on the camera function of their mobile phones. Fanning complained in his heart. He knew that Zhou Qin was famous for her strong temper in the Chinese cultivation world. She would do what she said. If they made a fuss, he was afraid that the reputation of Shiyuan Temple would be implicated by him. Amitabha. Jinren Zhou is too cruel, isn't she? Fanning's face was so bitter that he could almost squeeze out bile. He said with a sad face, don't, Jinren Zhou, please be merciful. I'll take you there, okay? Chapter 901. Seeing that Fa Neng had given in, Zhou Qin snorted. She glanced around and saw that many monks in the temple were secretly looking at them, pointing at them and laughing secretly. When they saw Zhou Qin looking at them, they immediately turned their heads away. With a solemn expression on their faces, they raised one hand and went into the temple in a line. Fanning said to Zhou Qin with a tearless face, Jinren Zhou, let go of me. Buddha said that men and women should not touch each other. What are you doing? Zhou Qin let go of his collar and said unforgivingly, Bah, is this what Buddha said? When did Mencius become Buddha? I've learned a lot. Don't you read books? Fanning's face turned red, and he was so ashamed that he really wanted to dig a hole in the ground and hide in it. He put his palms together and said to Zi Yuan with a twisted face, Jinren Zi Yuan, come with me. I'll take you to Shixiang Wuhua. Shiyuan Temple was located on Shiyuan Road in Dongwu City, and there was a small moat next to it. Zi Yuan saw that Zhou Qin was in extreme pain. If it weren't for the onlookers blocking the way at this time, Fanning would have turned around and jumped into the river. Zi Yuan glared at Zhou Qin reproachfully. She said to Fanning politely, Master Fanning, please lead the way. Fanning quickly waved his hand and said, I don't dare to call myself master. Jinren Zi Yuan, just call me Fanning. After that, he didn't dare to look at Zi Yuan and Zhou Qin again, as if looking at them one more time would cause endless trouble. Fanning lowered his head all the way and walked out quickly. Zi Yuan and Zhou Qin followed behind him. After they stopped a taxi, they soon arrived at Muda Hong Kong Street, which they hadn't seen for a long time. In their group, there was a monk and 4 stunning beauties. Fanning sat in the front row, while Zi Yuan, Zhou Qin, Wan Hongling, and Lin Miao sat side by side in the back row because of their slim figures, so it wasn't crowded. The driver driving in front had a strange expression on his face all the way, especially when he heard that they were going to Muda Hong Kong Street. He kept glancing at Zi Yuan and the others in the rearview mirror. After they got out of the car, the driver stepped on the accelerator and muttered in Dongwu dialect, What morning light is that? So thick, let the flowers wipe. However, he was secretly cursing. In this day and age, even monks were so flirtatious. What kind of world was this? Even the driver had such a perverted thought, let alone the guests in the red light district. Along the way, countless people looked at Zi Yuan and the others with surprised and doubtful eyes. Some men were really shocked when they saw Zi Yuan. They didn't dare to have any evil thoughts in their hearts, let alone go forward to ask about the price. Last time, with Li Jidong, they had been accompanied by him. With his appearance and his temperament, others didn't dare to look at them. But, they, Fanning, they, Li, and they, and Li, and, Dong, in, Li. But, they, in, they, Qin, and. Didn't we already pass the Crystal Love International Entertainment City? Fanning put his palms together and said with a wry smile, Jinren Zhou, my Shixiang is not here. He went to another shop to beg for alms today. Beg for alms? Zhou Qin laughed and sneered. Is he begging for naughty things? Faning's face turned red, and he braced himself to say, Xixiang's spiritual energy is profound. We don't understand his words and deeds. Zhou Qin snorted and stopped talking to him. She just urged him to hurry up and lead the way. Before long, they arrived in front of a sauna. The sauna didn't look big, and there were a few pink lights at the door, which really annoyed Zhou Qin. She glanced around and saw that most of the women in the shop were vulgar. They were dressed very violently, and their faces were covered with heavy makeup. If she hadn't come here twice to look for naughty things, she would never have set foot in such a place in her life. Zhou Qin thought highly of herself. Not only was she lofty, but she also had a bit of moral cleanliness. She looked down on this kind of woman who did naughty things from the bottom of her heart. Seeing this place, how could she show a good face? Zhou Qin turned her head and asked Fanning, Is your Xixiang here? Fanning said with a wry smile, Xixiang has recently enlightened a woman in this shop. It should be. Zhou Qin sneered and said, Enlightening a woman? Do you need to do it in such a place? Since you know that your Xixiang is here, it seems that you are not a good person. Humph, you are just as bad as him. Fanning really wanted to kill himself in front of the pink lights. He said tearlessly, No, I've never been to this place. As soon as he finished speaking, he saw Madame Mulberry come out and say to Fanning with a smile on her face, Oh, Master Fanning, you're here again. Come on in and sit down. Hearing this, Wan Hongling couldn't help but burst into laughter. Lin Miao also burst into laughter. He turned his face away and his shoulders kept shaking. Fanning's face turned purplish red, like a pig's liver. He couldn't speak for a while, so he just looked at Zi Yuan for help. Zi Yuan said helplessly to Zhou Qin, stop talking. Hurry up and find someone. Zhou Qin sneered and shouted at Madame Mulberry, Hey, call Wu Hua out. Madame Mulberry put one hand on her waist and held a cigarette in the other. She said in a very coarse voice, Oh, who are you? What's your relationship with Master Wu Hua? What's your relationship with Master Fanning? When these beautiful women stood at the door, they naturally attracted a lot of attention. With a monk standing among them, it was even more eye-catching. Madame Mulberry had seen them for a long time. Although she was not a romantic figure like Mei Nyang, she was also a person who rolled around in pleasure circles. Her eyesight was very vicious, and she could tell at a glance that Zhou Qin and the others had come with ill intentions. She had also seen Fanning and Wu Hua come to the shop together, and she had also heard Wu Hua call the monk Fanning. Therefore, she preemptively told Zhou Qin, The person who came with you is not a gentleman. Don't try to do this. Save it. Madame Mulberry's idea was not bad. This was very useful for many women who wanted to save face. But what kind of person was Zhou Qin? She was a strong person who could fight with others head-on and break her bones as if nothing had happened. How could she give up just because of a few words? When Zhou Qin heard Madame Mulberry's words, she was so angry that she raised her eyebrows. She didn't talk nonsense with Madame Mulberry and went straight inside. She walked up to Madame Mulberry, pulled her arm, and pushed her. Get out of my way. What kind of cultivation quotient was she? Although she didn't use much strength, Madame Mulberry immediately flew out. After flying in the air for a while, she fell to the ground with a bang and screamed like a pig being slaughtered, Come on, come on. Where are all the people? Hurry up and chase these crazy women out for this old lady. Almost every entertainment venue had its own security guards. As soon as Madame Mulberry shouted, a few strong thugs immediately ran down. When they saw Zhou Qin standing at the front, they were stunned. They had been rolling around in prostitution and had seen a lot of beautiful women, but they had never seen a woman with such temperament, outstanding figure, and stunning beauty. Especially when they looked back and saw Zi Yuan again, they didn't know how to walk or speak. Each of them widened their eyes and stood motionless as if they had been immobilized. Until Madame Mulberry howled, What are you waiting for? Why aren't you going to attack me? Who usually takes care of you? Only then did these thugs wake up as if they had just woken up from a dream. One by one, they rushed forward. However, being beautiful was indeed an advantage. Although these thugs looked fierce with bulging eyes, they had made up their minds not to hurt such a beautiful woman. However, they had pity for her, but Zhou Qin had no intention of being soft-hearted. She snorted coldly, and the others saw her waving her slender hand. Suddenly, these burly men flew out of the door like little children and fell heavily on the road. They were confused and cried out. The eyes of the bystanders bulged out, and they were shocked. Damn, is this a beautiful girl? This woman is too powerful, isn't she? Seeing that the situation had developed so much, Ziyuan complained in her heart, but she couldn't say anything. She just whispered to Zhou Qin, hurry up and go in. I've already locked on to Master Wu Hua's location. After hearing this, Zhou Qin didn't even look at them and rushed straight in. The people in the sauna saw that she was so domineering and fierce, so no one dared to stop her. When a technician and a young lady saw her coming over, they immediately screamed and dodged, as if they had seen a ghost. Then, they watched her walk inside. There were many rooms in the sauna room, and there was a door separating them. Along the way, the lights were dim and ambiguous, and the soundproofing effect was excellent. Even if there was a huge commotion outside, no sound could be heard from inside. Of course, by the same logic, even if there was a huge commotion inside, no sound could be heard from outside. After entering the door, they could hear a burst of low and obscene sounds. The four great beauties, Ziyuan, Zhou Qin, Wan Hongling, and Lin Miao, all blushed when they heard this sound. Zhou Qin gritted her teeth and thought to herself, Wu Hua, if you don't know where master is, I'll teach you a lesson. Under Ziyuan's guidance, she walked straight to a dark room. As soon as she reached the door, she heard a clear voice coming from inside. It would have been better if she hadn't heard it, but as soon as she did, anger rose in her heart, and she became even more daring. It was a man in the room who said slowly, Amitba. Benefactress, please forgive me for not being able to consecrate the light through your clothes. Please take off your clothes. Zhou Qin was furious. Without saying a word, she raised her leg and kicked the door open. She rushed in angrily. /uploaded by bookfriends /. Chapter 902. Zhou Qin kicked the door open, and a scream came from inside. She took a closer look and saw an enchanting woman in the room looking at the door in panic. She was wearing a cheongsam, and her clothes had been pulled down to her chest, revealing a snow-white chest and a deep ravine. She was almost there. At this time, the light in the room was dim and ambiguous. This woman had amazing curves and was indescribably seductive. What a stunner! Zhou Qin rushed into the room angrily, and Ziyuan, who was beside her, couldn't stop her. She felt a headache coming on. Inside the room, Wu Hua was looking at the door. When he saw Zhou Qin, he was stunned for a moment. Just as he was about to speak, he saw that Zhou Qin had already rushed up to him angrily. Zhou Qin resisted the urge to pick up Wu Hua. She gritted her teeth and sneered, Master Wu Hua, may I ask what you are doing here? Wu Hua seemed to have expected such a thing. He stood up calmly, bowed solemnly, and said, It turns out to be benefactor Zhou Qin. I haven't seen you for a long time. Please forgive me for my rudeness. I'm doing this for this benefactor. Zhou Qin said angrily, If you dare say that you are blessing her, I will slap you to death. Wu Hua paused for a moment, and then said, I'm doing this for this benefactor. Zhou Qin rushed to say, If you dare say that you are healing her through her clothes, I will slap you to death. Wu Hua's expression was strange. He glanced at the woman next to him, and then at Zhou Qin. He put his palms together, chanted the name of Buddha, and said, Amitba, lust. Zhou Qin rushed to say, Amitba, my ass. If you dare say that lust is emptiness and emptiness is lust, I will slap you to death. The corner of Wu Hua's eyes twitched. He looked at Zhou Qin helplessly and said, benefactor, you haven't heard of. Unexpectedly, at this time, Zhou Qin rushed to say again, nonsense. If you dare say that wine and lust pass through your intestines and Buddha sits in your heart, I will. Before she could finish her words, Wan Hongling next to her said in unison, I will slap you to death. After that, she burst into laughter with Lin Miao beside her. Wu Hua looked up to the sky and sighed. Benefactor Zhou, you can slap me to death. Although Zi Yuan felt that it was a little inappropriate, she couldn't help laughing when she saw Wu Hua, who was eloquent and had a painful expression on his face. However, she was calm after all. She pulled Zhou Qin's arm and motioned for her not to go too far. Then she said to Wu Hua, Master Wu Hua, it's really rude of us to come here. Why don't we go out and wait for you for a few minutes? Wu Hua waved his hand and said with a solemn expression, I'm purifying the secular world. What's there to be ashamed about? Zhou Qin was so angry that she laughed. She pointed to the side and said, Master Wu Hua, can you please put on your pants first when you talk seriously in the future? Wu Hua's expression froze for a moment, before returning to normal. He calmly put on his long pants and tidied up his clothes. Then, he asked sternly, what business do you have with me? Zhou Qin snorted. Even if she wanted to ask for help, she didn't know what to say at this time. She really didn't believe that this monk could find Li Yundong. Zi Yuan no longer had any hope, but since she was already here, she had to take things as they were. She said softly, Master Wu Hua, aren't you proficient in karmic divination? You must be able to guess why we're here, right? Wu Hua glanced at them, then smiled slightly and said, you guys are inseparable from Zhenrenli. This time, you came here so abruptly, and Benefactor Zhou ruined my plan. There must be something urgent. If I'm not wrong, something must have happened to Zhenrenli. You want to ask me, right? Zi Yuan was stunned for a moment, then she smiled appreciatively and said, Master Wu Hua is really smart. Yes, that's why we're here. As she spoke, she briefly told him what had happened. Then, she asked anxiously and worriedly, Master Wu Hua, we have no idea what to do now. Please help us. Wu Hua smiled, put his palms together, and said, Amitabha, Zhenrenli is the reincarnation of Wisdom King. He won't die so easily. If he becomes a Buddha, it's impossible for us not to know. Zhou Qin said, don't you think we know that? We just want to know where my master has gone. Aren't you proficient in karmic divination? I think you should know where my master has gone. If you can help us find him, I will definitely treat you well. Wu Hua smiled and said, if you don't slap me to death, this poor monk will be very satisfied. Zhou Qin snorted. Just as she was about to retort, she suddenly saw that the enchanting woman had already taken off her clothes. There seemed to be a tail flashing quickly under the hem of her dress. It was so fast that it looked like an illusion. If it weren't for the fact that Zhou Qin had cultivated to the Thunder Retribution realm and had a pair of fiery eyes, she would have thought that she was hallucinating. Zhou Qin was stunned for a moment. When she raised her head to look at the woman, she saw that she had already hidden behind Wu Hua in panic. She wanted to see what was going on, but it was already too late. Zhou Qin was shocked and doubtful. What the hell is this monk doing? Is this woman a demon? Is she really avoiding evil and purifying? Even if she wants to purify, she doesn't need to be enlightened. Do you think you're the abbot of Shaolin Temple? However, at this time, Zhou Qin couldn't care less about this. She asked, do you have a way? If you have a way, tell me quickly. I will definitely thank you later. Wu Hua smiled and said, it's the duty of us cultivators to help the righteous way. What's more, Zhenrenli has a deep relationship with our Buddhist sect. In addition, the calamity of the world has not been resolved, so I should help you. As he spoke, he turned back and whispered a few words to the woman behind him. Then, he turned to Zhou Qin, Zi Yuan, and the others and said, Benefactors, please come with me. It's a little inconvenient for us to talk outside. The woman looked at Wu Hua reluctantly and said softly, Master, please come again next time. Wu Hua said with a serious face, "Please rest assured, benefactor. I will definitely come again." Zhou Qin and Zi Yuan looked at each other awkwardly. No matter how they listened, it felt awkward. Zhou Qin coughed dryly, while Zi Yuan pretended not to hear it with a straight face. Just as they were about to go out, they saw a group of people rushing in from outside. It was the thugs from the sauna room. With the encouragement of Madame Sang, they had regrouped and were ready to come in and arrest the people. Zhou Qin frowned, sneered, and said in a low voice, "They won't cry until they see the coffin." Then, she prepared to go up again. But at this time, Wu Hua smiled and said, "Benefactor Zhou, everything in the world is a trick. Why do you care about them?" As he spoke, he pinched his fingers together. After the thugs who had rushed and looked around for a while, they actually passed by them as if they hadn't seen them at all. Zhou Qin was a little impressed by Wu Hua. She looked him up and down seriously, and the hope in her heart suddenly increased a little. After they left the fragrant red light district, Zi Yuan, Zhou Qin, and the others immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Wu Hua put his palms together and said, "Benefactors, we are out now. Is there a quiet place for me to practice?" Zi Yuan said, "Master Wu Hua, why don't we go to the Taoist field on Mount Tianlong? It's quiet and remote there." Wu Hua smiled and said, "It turns out to be the old place of the Fox Zen school." Well, where does the cause and effect begin? Naturally, it should be here. Zhou Qin saw that his words were full of deep meaning, and her heart moved slightly. She seemed to have thought of something, but it was vague and she couldn't figure it out clearly. Seeing that she couldn't figure it out, Zhou Qin stopped thinking about it. They soon arrived at the stone cave of the secret chamber of the Fox Zen school. Wu Hua looked around and nodded frequently. Especially when he saw the big words written by the mystical silver fox on the stone wall, he couldn't help putting his palms together and saying, "Amitabha, the cause of all things is this." Good, good. Zi Yuan was not in the mood to think about the meaning of her words. After she took out the purple gold luo pan and the sky-reaching glass mirror, she said to Wu Hua, "Master Wu Hua, come and take a look. What's wrong with these two powerful magical weapons?" After we asked Celestial Master Zhang, he said that Li Yundong had jumped out of the three realms and was no longer in the five elements. What does this mean? Master, please help us solve this problem. Wu Hua chuckled and walked to the side of the two powerful magical weapons. He rolled up the sleeve of the other hand with one hand, and gently pinched his fingers with the other, like Buddha holding a flower and smiling. He gently pointed to the sky-reaching glass mirror and said, "Jinren Zi Yuan, can you let me have a look?" Zi Yuan quickly stepped aside and said, "Master, please have a look." Wu Hua stretched out his hand and gently touched the surface of the sky-reaching glass mirror with his finger. Suddenly, the mirror began to surge, and soon, one picture after another appeared on the mirror, which was the same as when Celestial Master Zhang had done it. Wu Hua looked at the mirror seriously. After all the pictures had passed, he reached out to the purple gold luo pan again. As soon as his finger touched the luo pan, a purple halo appeared on it. The halos were like ripples, one layer after another. Wu Hua looked at the waves that were constantly spreading around and sighed softly, "This magical item is really amazing. Look, between each wave, there is a small kiliacosm." As he spoke, he looked up at Zi Yuan and smiled. "I think I already know where Zhenrenli is." Zi Yuan and Zhou Qin immediately asked nervously in unison, "Where is he?" Lin Miao and Wan Hongling also clenched their fists and looked at Wu Hua with their eyes wide open. Wu Hua smiled and said, "He is no longer in this world." Zi Yuan and Zhou Qin suddenly trembled, as if they had been struck by lightning. They were so scared that their faces turned pale. Zi Yuan's face was as white as paper, and she said in a trembling voice, "Could it be that he has really?" Zhou Qin's body also swayed, as if she was about to fall at any time. "That's impossible. Master can't just leave us like this." Wu Hua looked at them strangely and said, "I didn't say that he was dead. I just said that he went to another kiliacosm." Ziyuan and Zhou Qin were stunned for a moment. Only then did they come to their senses. Zhou Qin was angry and annoyed. Why are you panting while talking? Ziyuan didn't care about him. She quickly asked anxiously, then where is he? Wuhua chuckled and pointed his finger forward. Right here. Chapter 903. Wuhua pointed forward, but Ziyuan and Zhou Qin saw that he was pointing at the sky-reaching glazed mirror. The two of them looked at each other, and Ziyuan asked in confusion, Here? Wuhua smiled and said, That's right. Zhenrenli has already jumped out of the 3 realms and is no longer in the 5 elements. Naturally, he has gone to other small worlds. Buddha says that karma should end where it starts. Zhenrenli and the mystical silver fox disappeared because of this powerful magical weapon, so we should naturally start from this powerful magical weapon. Ziyuan hesitated and said, Master Wuhua, I understand what you said, but there are 36,000 methods in Buddhism, and there are hundreds of millions of small worlds in Taoism. There are so many small worlds. Where can we find Li Yundong? Wuhua smiled, put his palms together, and said, Amitba, I need Zhenren Ziyuan's help. He pointed to the sky-reaching glazed mirror and said, Zhenren Ziyuan, please help me later. Mobilize your spiritual power and Jinshi to drive this powerful magical weapon. I will find a way to find where Zhenrenli is, but I can't guarantee that it will be accurate. Ziyuan was skeptical, but there was no better way at the moment. She hesitated for a moment and said, Well, thank you, Master Wuhua. As she said this, she activated her Jinshi and flew into the air with the powerful magical weapon. Ruan Hongling and Lin Miao, who were next to her, saw that the mirror quickly cast a colorful divine light, shining straight on the ground. Wuhua nodded and said, Zhenren Ziyuan, please shine this divine light here. As he said this, he pointed to the purple gold luo pan next to him. Ziyuan controlled the powerful magical weapon and shone the beam of light toward the purple gold luo pan. She saw that the beam of light was no different from before, but at this time, Wuhua stretched out his hand and pointed at the back of the purple gold luo pan. In an instant, the purple gold luo pan buzzed, and countless purple light waves suddenly rippled out, merging with the colorful divine light. Suddenly, the room was filled with brilliance, dazzling people. Wuhua's fingers fluttered like a blooming lotus, while his other hand formed a palm. He said in an evil tone, My heart contains the 10 Dharma realms, 1 Dharma realm contains the 10 Dharma realms and the 100 Dharma realms. 1 world has 30 worlds, the 100 Dharma realm has 3,000 worlds. However, the mind is all Dharma, and all Dharma is the mind. It is neither vertical nor horizontal, neither one nor different, it is profound and solitary. It is not known by knowledge, it is not spoken by words. As he spoke, his eyes shone with a profound brilliance. His gaze was like a torch, as he pointed towards the ever-changing image of the sky-piercing glass mirror. Instantly, the stone chamber buzzed, as though a bomb had exploded. The sound was oppressive, and the air trembled violently. Then, a rainbow halo appeared behind the amethyst gold luo pan with a hissing sound. The halo was so dense that it looked like spilled paint, and couldn't be dissolved. At this time, Wuhua shouted, 3,000 worlds, 1 billion mortal worlds, open. Suddenly, the colorful halo was pulled apart, and a huge black hole appeared in the middle. Black mist could be faintly seen spinning and twisting in the black hole. It was so deep that it was bottomless. Ziyuan and Zhou Qin knew that Wuhua was proficient in the predestination art, but they didn't know that he was more proficient in the heavenly eye art, one of the 6 great magical powers of Buddhism. The so-called heavenly eye art meant that one could see the cause and effect of the 3 lives of all living beings, as well as the place of reincarnation in the cycle of life and death. The predestination art allowed one to know what had happened to oneself and others in the past. Knowing the future was the function of the heavenly eye art, but the future was uncertain, so it was generally not absolutely correct. However, the method of the past was extremely accurate and could be found by human beings. After the eminent monks of Tibetan Buddhism passed away, their disciples or other monks would look for their reincarnation everywhere. At this time, they needed a monk with profound spiritual power, the heavenly eye art, and the predestination art to take the lead. Otherwise, in the vast sea of people, they might not be able to find the reincarnated spirit boy even if they searched for a lifetime. Zhou Qin, Wan Hongling, and Lin Miao were all stunned. At this time, Wu Hua turned his head and shouted at them, "Why aren't you going in to look for him?" Zhou Qin seemed to have just woken up from a dream. Without thinking about it, she gritted her teeth and rushed in a flash. Wan Hongling, who was beside her, let out a sigh. Just as she was about to reach out to stop her, she saw her figure move and disappear into the dark cave in the blink of an eye. She was stunned for a moment and stared straight at the dark cave. She gritted her teeth, stamped her feet, and rushed in as well. Her figure disappeared in an instant. The two of them disappeared in the blink of an eye, leaving only Lin Miao standing there alone. Although she also wanted to go, she saw that the divine light was colorful and unusually bright. It didn't seem like a color that could exist in the mortal world. Her eyes widened, and seeing that the pillar of light was very close to her, she curiously wanted to touch it with her hand. Just as she reached out her hand and touched the colorful light, she immediately felt a strong suction force coming from it. Her vision went black, and she was instantly sucked in. She was a little bit surprised. She didn't know what to do. Zi Yuan, who was watching from a high place, was very anxious. Just as she was about to scream, she heard Wu Hua say loudly, "Zi Yuan, you can't be distracted. You have to keep this powerful magical weapon. Otherwise, when the door closes, they won't be able to come back." Zi Yuan's heart sank, and she didn't dare to be distracted anymore. However, she was secretly anxious. She didn't know where Zhou Qin and the others had gone, whether they would meet Li Yunyang, and whether they could come back together. At this time, the cultivators of various sects in Japan were rushing to Tiannan City in great numbers for the sake of Ise Xinguang and Ise Chuyun of the Ise Shinto. Unlike the last time, this time, only one or two people from each sect in the Japanese cultivation world had come. Basically, all of them were people who were good at politics and had a good relationship with both sides. Last time, they had come to China to fight PK, and naturally, they had sent out all their elites. It was fine as long as they could fight. The more trash like Takahashi Masashi, the better. But this time, things were different. This time, they were not here to fight. They were here to see the reincarnated Wisdom King. If a few more trash like Takahashi Masashi came, they would anger Wisdom King. That would not be good. Ise Xinguang was quite eloquent, and he was quite popular in the Japanese cultivation world. Kaisai Hikaryuni of Shingen Tantrism was not coming this time, and Imagawa Kagumo had already passed away. The great monks of Pure Land Truce sect were busy holding a funeral at the Wish Temple. The patriarch of the Abe family had just died, and the three great priests of Yoshikawa Shinto, Yoshida Shinto, and Chuka Shinto had all died. It could be said that the elites of the top generation in the Japanese cultivation world had almost been wiped out in these consecutive battles, so the responsibility of leading the team naturally fell on Ise Xinguang. If it had been in normal times, these Japanese people might have argued. Where there were people, there would be jianghu. Where there were jianghu, there would be fights. Since they were going out in a group, there would naturally be a leader. No matter how small the leader was, they would still have to fight for it. However, this battle not only greatly damaged the vitality of the Japanese cultivation world, but also destroyed the arrogance and conceit of the Japanese cultivation world. Compared with other sects, the Ise Shinto had lost the least. None of the great priests and goddesses had died. Although Ise Chumo was seriously injured, the situation was relatively calm at this time. There would be no more battles in a short time, so Ise Chumo's injury could be ignored. A top expert had an extremely great influence on the power of a sect. Because the Tachibana family had merged with the Jinyin Tantrism, Masako Tachibana had obtained the power of Wisdom King. As a result, the Tachibana family had once ruled the Japanese cultivation world for 10 years. The Xinyan Tantrism had also risen along with it, surpassing the Tiantai sect and becoming the second largest cultivation sect in Japanese Buddhism. Therefore, it could be said that Ise Xinguang led the team out this time. The Japanese people were utilitarian and practical. If the other party was stronger than them, they would shrink into a ball and endure humiliation. If they were stronger than the other party, they would ride on the other party's neck and defecate. The Ise Shinto was originally one of the top sects in the Japanese cultivation world. After this battle, it was even more outstanding. The two top masters were well preserved. Ise Xinguang and Ise Chumo, both of whom respectedly Yunyang very much in their daily words and deeds, could be regarded as pro-China. Therefore, on this trip, the Japanese people were extremely polite, and there were also some Japanese consortiums that had close ties with the religious world. There were 10 consortiums in the United States, namely Rockefeller, Morgan, First Citibank, DuPont, Boston, Mellon, Cleveland, Chicago, California, and Texas. There were also 6 consortiums in Japan, namely Mitsubishi, Mitsui, Sumitomo, Fuji, Daiichi, and Sanwa. In fact, these consortiums controlled the economic and political lifelines of their respective countries, and even the economic lifelines of the world. They were very powerful. On the surface, these 6 consortiums did not have much contact with the various cultivation sects in Japan, but in fact, these large consortiums had branches of medium-sized consortiums. These medium-sized consortiums had a very close relationship with the various cultivation sects in Japan. It could even be said that many people in these cultivation sects were their worshippers. If there was anything wrong with them, they would go to treat them or become mages. If there was anything unfair, they would even directly act as thugs. The 2 consecutive defeats of the Japanese cultivation world not only shocked the cultivation world, but also affected the forces of these consortiums, which made the big shots of these consortiums extremely shocked. The cultivators went to China to worship the Akalanatha. They were unwilling to be left out, so they followed the cultivators of various sects to China. They wanted to see what the reincarnated Wisdom King, who was famous in Japan, looked like. Did he have 3 heads and 6 arms as the rumor said? But when they ran to Tiannan City in China, they found that the Akalanatha had already left. But when Ise Xinguang and the others asked where Li Yunyang had gone, how could the little foxes who stayed at home tell them? This time, the Japanese came excitedly, and everyone was disappointed. But they reacted quickly, and soon remembered that the reincarnated Wisdom King had opened a tea house with Desanxian in the downtown of Tiannan City. If they went there, they might be able to find him in person. As a result, these Japanese people headed toward the Desanxian in a large group. Yesterday, there was a sudden power outage. After waiting for a while, there was no electricity, so he went straight to bed. When he got up in the morning, he hurriedly finished this chapter. Chapter 904. Feng Na had been very unhappy these past few days. Although she had received a big red envelope during the new year, as the saying goes, the more you get, the more you have to pay. After all, there was no free lunch in the world. After Li Yundong's Desanxian opened a branch in Tiannan City, its business became increasingly prosperous. With its unique business methods and genuine immortal tea skills, coupled with Chen Wankai and the others sparing no effort in pursuing it, Desanxian maintained a unique leading position in the tea business in Tiannan City, which was like a swarm of bees. However, in any industry, if one party was too outstanding, it would be easy to be envied, excluded, or even suppressed. Especially when a business could generate high profits, all kinds of conspiracies and sinister methods would be derived from it. Although Li Yundong had a deep background in Tiannan City, Zhou Qin was by his side to protect him, and Chen Wankai had just become a disciple. This could not stop Li Yundong from not showing up all day long, and he could not stop people with poor eyesight from having some crooked ideas all day long. The business of Desanxian was booming, and its daily performance was unbelievable, but this was not enough to drive many people crazy with jealousy. What really made them jealous was that under Chen Wansai's advice, Feng Na had adopted the V-level system in Desanxian. Especially after the opening of the high-level tea room, some high-ranking officials and dignitaries felt honored to be able to go into the room and drink a cup of tea. It seemed that from then on, they had a little bit of elegance. In this way, the people who went in and out of these high-level tea rooms formed a special group, and because of the existence of Desanxian, there was a lot of communication between this special group. It was just like how a lot of people sharpened their brains to get into Class A. They were not really there to learn about Class A, but to get to know the other elites in the circle. In their eyes, sometimes networking was more important than knowledge. In the same way, after Desanxian brought up the atmosphere of tea culture in Tiannan City, a large number of high-ranking officials and nobles in Tiannan City went to drink tea almost every day. How much money they drank every day was secondary, but the energy generated by such a group of people together made others extremely jealous. However, these people were jealous, but they could still control themselves. They would not be stupid enough to provoke the owner of this shop, but there were always one or two people who were stupid, especially those who had been in the officialdom since childhood and were deeply influenced by the official culture. Lu Wenla, who had followed his father to Tiannan City, was one of them. Although his father had repeatedly told him to keep a low profile and not cause trouble for his father when he came to Tiannan City to take over as the secretary of the political and legal committee, Lu Wenla had been a devil since he was a child. He was used to being arrogant. He could not bear it anymore after a few days. He followed the trend of Tiannan City's officialdom and came to Desanxian. When he saw the smart, capable, beautiful and generous Feng Na, he was immediately shocked and swore to get her. The eldest young Master Lu naively thought that this tea house was Feng Na's own property. The next day, he came to her casually, pointed at the Desanxian tea house, and said that he wanted to buy it. He asked Feng Na to make a bid. When Feng Na was an intern at the TV station, she had also seen such a face, but she had never seen such a brazen one. She was polite, but she said that this tea house was not her property and she could not make the decision. When young Master Lu heard this, he was immediately overjoyed. This tea house is not yours? Are you working here? Well, when I buy this tea house, I will give her part of the shares. Won't such a beauty come to me obediently? Young Master Lu's plan was very clever. He did not want to buy this tea house on a whim. He had carefully observed the business of this tea house. Not to mention that it was popular, the key was that high-ranking officials and nobles often came and went. His father had just been parachuted into the officialdom of Tiannan City and was unfamiliar with the place. If he could buy this place, it would be a convenient place for his father to interact with other high-ranking officials and nobles in the future. Most of the interpersonal relationships of China were at the wine table, and it was also feasible at the tea table. Therefore, buying the Desanxian tea house could not only allow his father to quickly integrate into the officialdom of Tiannan City, but also bring a beauty home. This was really a good idea to kill two birds with one stone. However, after young Master Lu expressed his desire to see the owner of the tea house, Feng Na refused without saying a word. She knew very well that how could Li Yundong sell his painstaking efforts. Even if he had this idea, she had to persuade him. Young Master Lu had hit a wall, but he was not discouraged. He carefully checked Feng Na's information and details, only to find that Feng Na was only from an ordinary middle-class family. Her family was not bad, but it was not surprising. This tea house was also opened by a young man named Li Yundong. After young Master Lu found out that Li Yundong was the behind-the-scenes boss, he subconsciously wanted to go to Li Yundong to discuss the purchase of the tea house. However, these days, Li Yundong was either busy saving the world or saving mankind all day long. He had no time or mind to pay attention to these things. Because he often had to meditate or fight with others, he usually did not take his mobile phone with him. Otherwise, when he was deep in meditation or in the fierce and anxious period of fighting with others, he would be distracted by a phone call at this time. Young Master Lu had been looking for Li Yundong's whereabouts for a few days, but he had not found any trace of him. He thought that Li Yundong was hiding from him. He sneered at the courage of this behind-the-scenes boss and subconsciously wanted to find some people to mess with him. However, a crown prince like eldest young Master Lu might be arrogant and supercilious in daily life, but his starting point was much higher than that of ordinary people. Therefore, even when he was muddle-headed, sometimes his way of doing things and his vision were much higher than that of ordinary people. Although the eldest young Master Lu was arrogant, he still had to find out his opponent's background. But it would be better if he didn't find out. Once he did, he was shocked. Oh my God, it turns out that he also has a strong background. Young Master Lu suddenly felt a little embarrassed. He had just patted his chest and boasted to the beauty. If he stopped at this time and the news spread, how could he stay in Tiannan City? Young Master Lu's father was the secretary of the Political and Legal Committee, which was a key position in the government department. He was a leader with real power and had a very high status. Although he was sent here by air, there would always be some people who wanted to curry favor with him. Therefore, young Master Lu was naturally the target of the people below him. Young Master Lu usually went out with a lot of people around him. With a casual word, someone would be willing to help him. It was too easy to get a person, especially a person with property. Young Master Lu had been in the officialdom since he was a child. He knew that the best way to deal with the Desanxian was to start from the aspect of health, and it was naturally the Sanitary Bureau that was in charge of health. In order to cover up, young Master Lu could not rush into the Sanitary Bureau and say that he wanted to deal with the Desanxian. He quickly found the Health and Epidemic Prevention Station, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and other units under the Sanitary Bureau. The leaders of the departments above might not necessarily give him face. After all, they were all famous people, but when the people below him saw him, as long as they recognized him, how could they not be polite? What? Young Master Lu is in trouble? Leave it to me. I promise to do it properly for you. Therefore, after a meal, a few glasses of wine, and with the instigation of young Master Lu, a few hotheads swaggered to the door drunk. After all, Feng Na had just graduated from college. How could she know the complexity of society and the sinister nature of people's hearts? In the land of the Celestial Empire, there were 10,000 reasons for officials to punish the people. If they wanted to punish a business, there were 1,000,000 reasons. Especially in the health industry. Although there was an operating standard for whether the industry was clean or not, no matter how standard it was empty talk when it was carried out by King people. These people from the Epidemic Prevention Station swaggered to the Desanxian Station and walked around the store. When they came out, they said that the health and safety of the store were not up to standard and needed to be closed for 3 months. This time, Feng Na was dumbfounded. When she took over the Desanxian, it was when the business of the Desanxian began to improve. At this time, many officials in Tiannan City had attended the opening ceremony of the Desanxian, so they all bought the store. She had never been involved in these things. Even if she had a supply of goods or was forced to contact these people because of other disputes, she had been given the green light all the way, and no one had made things difficult for her. But at this time, when she suddenly encountered someone who wanted to clean up the Desanxian, Feng Na was suddenly at a loss. As the saying goes, the king of hell is easy to see, but the little ghosts are difficult to deal with. The ones who were really working were these ordinary law enforcement officers, who usually looked inconspicuous. These people usually had unfathomable connections. If they didn't want the hygiene of a store to pass the standard, they could even find problems in a 9-star restaurant, let alone the Desanxian. Feng Na had never encountered these things before, and she didn't know what to do. She could only watch these law enforcement officers drag their tea and tea sets away. This really made the round-faced beauty so angry that she gritted her teeth behind her back. The female shop assistants in the store were also panicking. They said at the same time, "What should we do? Feng Na, what should we do?" Feng Na didn't know what to do, but Ching Ching reacted quickly. She blurted out, "Nana, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and find Li Jiandong." Feng Na felt as if she had just woken up from a dream. She immediately grabbed her cell phone and dialed the number. However, no one answered the phone. Ching Ching saw that no one was answering the phone, so she said, call Zhou Qin." Feng Na immediately called Zhou Qin again, but no one answered. She didn't know that Zhou Qin had been cultivating for a long time and had gradually developed many habits of cultivators. If she felt that it would be dangerous to go out, she would never bring her cell phone with her. Feng Na couldn't get through to Zhou Qin's number, so she dialed Zi Yuan's number. However, no one picked up after this round of dialing. Even when she finally dialed Shen Wansai's number, he happened to be on a plane to Thailand to discuss business, and his phone was turned off on the plane. Feng Na had no choice but to call Lin Miao. But what made her crazy was that the phone was quickly hung up. This time, Feng Na was really anxious like an ant on a hot pot. She naturally couldn't figure out where Li Jiandong was now, and Li Jiandong had never expected that when he turned his head to deal with the mystical silver fox, there would be a fire in his backyard and big trouble. Chapter 905. As the saying goes, a cat has its own way, and a mouse has its own way. The tricks in China's officialdom could not be finished in a few days and nights. If eldest young Master Lu wanted to mess with a person, he would probably start from several aspects at the same time, trying to beat the other party so hard that he couldn't fight back, couldn't breathe, and finally begged for mercy. But now, he just sent a few minions of the Health and Epidemic Prevention Station to check the health and safety, which was just a small test. Although eldest young Master Lu did not know Li Yundong's name in the cultivation world, he knew that his background in the secular world was not small. If the other party reacted strongly and had amazing energy, he could push the blame to his subordinates, then set up a table of wine, apologize, and admit that he was a coward. Then it would be fine. Eldest young Master Lu had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. When I was drinking and eating, I talked nonsense with a few friends. As a result, they took a chicken feather as a token of authority and did something stupid. Eldest young Master Lu, this is actually a misunderstanding. It's really a misunderstanding. As the saying goes, no discord, no concord. Eldest young Master Lu, please forgive me this time. Eldest young Master Lu had always been flexible. When he sent people out, he even prepared to set up a banquet. He even chose the hotel, which was the Xingyuan Hotel in Tiannan City. However, when eldest young Master Lu paced back and forth at home, waiting for the other party's thunderous counterattack, there was no movement at all. Logically speaking, in this information age, if one's shop was messed with, one should immediately call the boss, and then the boss would fly into a rage and start to mobilize his own energy. After a while, the sky was full of dark clouds and thunder. If one reacted quickly, there would be movement in at most half an hour, and if one reacted slowly, it would not take more than an hour. However, eldest young Master Lu waited at home for nearly 2 hours, but there was no movement at all. It was so quiet that it was unreasonable. Even if a common person was messed with, the other party would still make a scene. There was no reason for the other party to be so quiet after messing with such a tough guy, right? Could it be that I misjudged him? Is he a weakling? Eldest young Master Lu naturally did not expect that the other party was a person who did not carry a mobile phone with him all day long, let alone that the other party could not find anyone who could help him at this time. Under this strange combination of factors, he could not help but come to a conclusion: the other party seemed to be scared. Alright, I'll continue messing with him until he makes some noise. After the people from the Health and Epidemic Prevention Station came, the people from the CDC came again. This time, the people who came were wearing white coats and masks. It was as if they were the biological and chemical troops who came to check for virus weapons. It scared the little girls and waiters in the tea house so much that their faces turned green. Feng Na was so angry that her eyes turned black and she almost fainted. She went up to reason with them, but they beat around the bush and played rogue with her. When Ching Ching threw caution to the wind and went forward to act wildly, the other side went back to reason with them with a straight face. They were really officials with 2 mouths, but not ordinary people at all. After the group of people left for a while, the people in the nearby shops and onlookers looked at the Desanxian in a different way. They all pointed at the Desanxian. Feng Na's heart was bleeding with hatred. At this time, she really had a feeling that she couldn't call out to anyone. Where on earth had Li Yundong gone? She was really anxious. Li Yundong is a mysterious guy. Where on earth did he go? Feng Na's mobile phone was almost broken. In the end, she wanted to smash it. Seeing that it was not a good thing, she gritted her teeth and said, "No, I'll go to the sanitary bureau by myself. I don't believe that there is no reason in this world." Ching Ching quickly grabbed her and said, "Nana, don't go. It's obvious that someone is messing with us. Think about it. Did we offend someone?" Feng Na was stunned. After all, she came from a good family and could not understand so many sinister people. She did not immediately think of the darkest side of things. Now that Ching Ching reminded her, she suddenly came to her senses. She turned her head and looked at Ching Ching, blurting out, "It can't be Lu Wenla, can it?" Ching Ching clapped her hands and immediately said, "It must be him." It would have been better if she hadn't said this. As soon as she said this, the two women felt that it must be Lu Wenla's doing. At the beginning, this guy had been so fierce, and now it seemed that he had fulfilled his promise. If Li Yundong was still there, they naturally wouldn't have to worry about such a thing. But the problem was that Li Yundong was not there now, so the two of them, who had no background, really had a big headache and were in a mess. Feng Na thought for a moment, picked up her small bag, stood up, and was ready to go outside. She said, "I'm going to find Lu Wenla." Ching Cheng's face changed. "Are you crazy? Isn't this like a sheep walking into a tiger's mouth?" Feng Na stamped her feet and said, "This won't work, that won't work. What on earth do you want?" Ching Ching gritted her teeth and said, "Why don't we just close for a few days and wait until we get in touch with Li Yundong? Anyway, you can't go to Lu Wenla. Otherwise, even if Lu Wenla stops, what will he do when Li Yundong comes in the future? Do you accept this favor, or not? Do you want to go against him, or what?" Although Feng Na's experience was shallow, she was also a smart person. After being reminded by Ching Ching, she immediately came to a realization. If she went and Lu Wenla gave up, then she would owe him a favor. Although it was very likely that this matter was caused by Lu Wenla, this kind of thing absolutely could not be said. Otherwise, if they shed all pretense of cordiality, then something even more terrible would happen. Once she owed a favor, how could she return it in the future? Pay a debt of love with her body? Bah, he should look in the mirror. No matter how she thought about it, in the end, this debt would still fall on Li Yundong's head. Therefore, Feng Na knew that she absolutely could not go. Feng Na sighed and sat down in frustration. She pressed her hand to her forehead and said in a low voice, "Forget it. Let's close the door first. Everyone should rest for the next few days." Some of the female students, who had not yet realized the seriousness of the situation, said anxiously, "Nana, if we don't open the door for a day, we will lose a lot of money." At this time, Ching Ching turned her head and said angrily, "Money, money, all you think about is money. It's not like we don't owe you a penny. What are you afraid of?" The girl who had spoken before suddenly blushed. The girl next to her couldn't stand it anymore, so she said, "That's not true. Nana, Li Yundong has been so kind to us. We have long regarded Desanxian as one of us and another home. Now that we see such a situation, we all feel bad in our hearts." At this time, Feng Na also stood up to smooth things over. She forced a smile and said, "Let's not talk about it. Let's take a few days off and wait for Li Yundong to come. Just take it as a holiday to make up for the new year." For a moment, everyone was in a low mood, but there was no good way, so they scattered in all directions. Just as they were about to leave and Feng Na and Ching Ching were about to close the door, they saw a group of people outside. Most of them were in suits. The man in the lead walked over and said in a non-standard Chinese accent, "Excuse me, is this Desanxian?" Ching Ching was in a bad mood. She opened her mouth and said rudely, "Don't you know how to look up at the plaque?" Feng Na immediately pulled her and glared at her. Then she turned back and said politely, "Yes, do you want tea?" "Unfortunately, today is the closing day of the shop. Can you come back another day?" "Closing day?" The man in the lead was none other than Ise Xinguang. He looked around strangely and saw that all the other shops were bustling, but the Desanxian was about to close. Ise Xinguang felt strange in his heart, but he didn't think too much about it. He asked with a smile, "Is Wisdom King here?" "Wisdom King?" Feng Na was stunned and asked in confusion, "Who is Wisdom King?" A girl next to Ise Xinguang suddenly rushed to say in an even more non-standard Chinese accent, "It's Li Yundong." "Is he here?" This girl was one of the representatives of the chaebols who had come with the Japanese cultivation group. She was the heiress of the Tanaka Group, a medium-sized consortium under the Mitsui Consortium. It was said to be a medium-sized consortium, but in fact, it was equivalent to the Mitsui Group. If this consortium was placed in any country, it would be a giant. The power of this consortium radiated to the business circles, political circles, gangs, and religious circles of Japan. They even manipulated the Japanese elections behind the scenes. This girl's name was Tanaka Misa, and she was the fourth heir of the Tanaka family. In the future, she would be in charge of inheriting the food business of the Tanaka Consortium. Their family had always believed in Ise Shinto, and she was very beautiful. She had a very close relationship with the goddess, Ise Chuyun. She often visited the Ise Grand Shrine and often drank tea and ate with Xinguang and Chuyun. Their family had been worshipping the Ise Shinto for generations, so the relationship between the two was very close. Therefore, when Xinguang and Chuyun talked about Taoism, they did not avoid this Miss Tanaka at all. When Tanaka Misa heard that they were going to visit a person in China and that their words were full of praise for this person, she couldn't help but be very curious. She knew that Ise Chuyun was famous for being arrogant and had no respect for anyone. Ise Xinguang looked sloppy on the outside, but in fact, he was reserved and conceited. It was not easy for him to praise a person. But at this time, when she heard the two of them praise Li Yundong like a flower, she couldn't help but be very curious. When she went back to investigate, she found out what earth-shattering things Li Yundong had done. He had single-handedly defeated the joint attack of the Japanese cultivation world, and then defeated the arrogant Tamamo with Su Yi, the three immortals, and the cultivators of the cultivation world of China and Japan. No matter how smart a woman in the world was, no matter how high her status and background was, it was inevitable that she would be curious when she encountered such a thing. Tanaka Misa was also a beautiful young girl. After spending a long time with Ise Chuyun, it was inevitable that she would feel that all men in the world were dirt. She felt that no man could catch her eye. But at this time, Li Yundong had appeared, and he was very young and handsome. God, how could I, Tanaka Misa, only know about such a legendary figure today? No, I have to go and have a look. So, she followed him and even learned a few words of China at the last minute. When she asked this question, Feng Na was stunned for a moment. Then, she shook her head and looked a little sad. No, he is not here. Ah. The Japanese were suddenly stirred up. What? We came here from thousands of miles away. It's fine if we can't see Wisdom King himself at the door of his house, but we can't even see him here? Tanaka Misa was even more disappointed. She immediately asked, "Are you one of the three immortals?" It took Feng Na a lot of effort to understand the meaning of her half-baked China language. She said blankly, "One of the three immortals. Are you referring to the sixth system in this shop?" Tanaka Misa felt that her conversation with this girl was a little out of place. They had rushed all the way here, and they had not been able to find Feng Na twice in a row. She was a little anxious and annoyed, but she was a businessman after all, and her observation skills were sharp. Soon, she discovered that the atmosphere in the tea house was gloomy, and Feng Na was frowning. Tanaka Misa couldn't help but ask, "What happened?" However, she didn't know how to say this in China language. She just said it in Japanese, and Ise Chuyun, who was next to her, translated it for her in a low voice. Fong Na saw that Ise Chuyun was extremely beautiful, and her temperament was even more outstanding. She was not inferior to Su Chan, Zi Yuan, or Zhou Qin at all. She knew that a woman with such a temperament must not be an ordinary person, so she calmed down and said, "It's nothing. I'm just preparing to close the shop. As the saying goes, don't wash your dirty linen in public." If such a thing had happened in the shop, they would have to cover it up in front of their own people, let alone in front of the Japanese. However, Fong Na didn't expect that the business of Desanxian was so prosperous that it had already aroused the envy of many people. Immediately, some onlookers said gloatingly, "The tea house is about to close. How can it be okay? Hurry up and do some cleaning, or else you'll drink something dirty. That would be bad." Ching Cheng was furious when she heard this. She was about to step forward to argue, but Fong Na stepped on her foot and motioned for her not to be impulsive. At this time, Ise Xinguang also asked curiously, "Did something happen?" "We are friends of His Highness Li Yunyang, that is, the Wisdom King. Tell us, it might be helpful." Fong Na bit her lip and felt strange in her heart. His Highness? The Wisdom King? Who on earth is Li Yunyang? Her hesitation made Ching Cheng, who was next to her, anxious. She couldn't hold back her temper and rushed to tell them what had happened. When the Japanese people heard this, they immediately stirred up and whispered to each other. Tanaka Misa was even more disappointed. She hadn't expected that the so-called hero in her mind was a good-for-nothing who couldn't even manage his own business. Tanaka Misa couldn't help curling her lips and saying, "He can't even manage a small tea house well. This person is not a hero at all." A chapter of 4,000 words. Yesterday's second chapter. There will be another chapter later. Chapter 906. In the eyes of people like Tanaka Misa, such a big shot who could shake the cultivation world of China and Japan couldn't even protect a small tea house and had been sealed by a group of the most ordinary law enforcers. If this happened in Japan, it would be a big deal. Ise Chuyun, who was standing to one side, suddenly scolded her in a low voice, "Misa." Tanaka Misa snorted inwardly, turned her head, and said in Japanese, "Isn't it? Chuyun, if this reincarnated Wisdom King is really as powerful as you say, why can't he even protect a tea house?" Ise Chuyun also felt a little strange, but she was a little displeased. "This is China, not Japan. Don't be rude." Only then did Tanaka Misa stop talking, but she just muttered in her heart with a disapproving look on her face. At this time, Ise Chuyun turned to Xinguang and said, "Xinguang Jun, what should we do now?" Ise Xinguang hadn't expected that they would encounter such a thing on this trip to China to worship the immovable Wisdom King. He pondered for a while and said, "It's not good for us to interfere in the internal affairs of China. However, we have to find Wisdom King as soon as possible and tell him about our affairs and what happened here as soon as possible." Ise Chuyun nodded gently and said, "That's right, but where could Li Yundong be?" Xinguang thought for a moment and said, "Find him. We must find him." After that, he looked around and said with a sigh, "I didn't expect Wisdom King to be in such trouble. He must be in a very difficult and dangerous situation now." Just as the cultivators of various sects in Japan began to launch their own efforts to find Li Yundong's whereabouts, Zhou Qin, or Wan Hongling, and Lin Miao had already appeared in another place. The moment Zhou Qin got into the black hole, she felt that she was wrapped in a huge mass of energy. It was dark all around her, as if she was in the vast ocean, being thrown up by the stormy waves and then falling heavily. After an unknown period of time, Zhou Qin suddenly felt that her surroundings were bright and dazzling. When she squinted and slowly opened her eyes again, she found herself in a strange place. He was no longer in a sealed cave, nor was he in a bustling city. Instead, he was in a lush forest. The forest was extremely dense. At first glance, Zhou Qin felt as if she was in a green sea. The shortest tree was more than 10 meters high. It was as if she had returned to the primeval forest. Under the towering trees, there were flowers and grasses of different colors. She couldn't even name them. Zhou Qin looked around in bewilderment and couldn't help shouting, "Master! Master, where are you?" But after shouting for a while, he could only hear the echoes of his voice echoing throughout the empty valley. Only the mountain birds were startled, but there was no response at all. She shouted for a while, then shouted reluctantly, "Li Yundong! Li Yundong!" There was an immediate response. A voice came from the other side of the valley. "Zhou Qin? Zhou Qin, is that you?" Zhou Qin found the voice familiar. She was shocked and said, "Hongling? Where are you?" Sure enough, a figure flew up from the opposite mountain ridge. She was dressed in a long red robe, and her black hair was tied in a high ponytail, revealing a full and bright forehead. She had a pretty and happy face. Who else could it be but Wan Hongling? Zhou Qin immediately rose into the air and flew into the air. She was surprised and reproachful as she said, "Why are you here?" Wan Hongling snorted and said angrily, "Why? Do you think that my cultivation is low and will cause you trouble and hold you back?" Zhou Qin sighed and said, "Even Master Wuhua doesn't know where this spirit space is. I'm afraid that even Master is in danger, let alone us. I'm afraid that if I get you into trouble, I won't be able to explain it to Ziyuan." Wan Hongling rolled her eyes, then smiled and said carelessly, "Since we're here, let's take it easy. Don't worry, it's okay. Aren't we safe now? Besides, you are now a lightning retribution master. Although my strength is not good, I have powerful magical weapons to protect myself. Don't worry, I won't hold you back. Besides, one more person means one more helper and one more pair of eyes, doesn't it?" Zhou Qin said helplessly, "What else can I say? Do you want me to send you back?" As she said this, Wan Hongling was suddenly shocked and blurted out, Yes, how do you think we can go back?" Zhou Qin was stunned when she heard this, then shook her head and said, "I don't know. Don't think about it now. Let's find Master first. Maybe if we find him, we'll know how to go back." Wan Hongling muttered in a low voice, "If he knows how to go back, why didn't he go back earlier?" Her words made Zhou Qin's heart sink, but then she said, "Maybe he is looking for the mystical silver fox?" Wan Hongling couldn't help but be a little worried. She looked around, only to see the green mountains and the vast sea of green trees. She couldn't see the end at a glance, and she didn't know where they were. It was more difficult to find a person than to find a needle in a haystack. Wan Hongling sighed and said, "Alas, there are only two of us. How can we find him? Where can we start?" Before she could finish her words, she suddenly heard a voice coming from the valley, "Eldest Shiji, eldest Shiji. Hongling, Shiji Hongling." The voice was clear and familiar, and the pronunciation was a little strange. Zhou Qin and Wan Hongling looked at each other and shouted in unison, "Lin Miao? You're here, too." They looked in the direction of the voice and saw a figure waving at them from the edge of the cliff in the dense jungle. Zhou Qin and Wan Hongling immediately flew over. Zhou Qin said in shock, "Lin Miao, are you crazy? You haven't even reached the Zhuji phase yet. Why are you here?" Lin Miao looked a little embarrassed. She said with grievance, "How would I know? I just thought that the colorful divine light was very beautiful, so I reached out and touched it. When I opened my eyes again, I was already here." Zhou Qin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She stamped her feet and said, "Alas, what do you want me to say?" Wan Hongling chuckled and said, "Well, there's one more person to help us look for him. Hey, Lin Miao, the three of us will take turns shouting. Whoever gets tired can take a break. What do you think?" How could Lin Miao say no? She glanced at Zhou Qin carefully and said, "Eldest Shiji, I can also help you look for him. Don't be angry." Zhou Qin sighed and said, "Forget it. Anyway, we're here. Let's hurry up and find him." The three of them discussed for a while, and then Zhou Qin and Wan Hongling flew in the air with Lin Miao, shouting and looking for him. However, there were mountains everywhere. They didn't know how long they had been flying before they reached a flat ground. The three of them shouted for a long time, but they didn't even see a ghost, let alone a figure. At this time, they landed on the ground. Even though Zhou Qin's cultivation was relatively high, her mouth was a little dry. She looked around and couldn't help but feel at a loss. In such a big and strange world, where could they find him? Although Wan Hongling's cultivation was higher than Lin Miao's among them, her foundation was the worst. She was so tired that she was panting like a dog. She put her hands on her knees and said, "Zhou Qin, take a rest. I'm so tired. My throat is sore from shouting." Lin Miao looked around, only to see that there was no village or shop in front of them. Behind them was a rolling mountain range, but in the distance was a boundless plain. She really didn't know where the end was. Lin Miao was secretly worried. After looking around carefully, she suddenly pointed to the ground and said, "Look." Zhou Qin and Wan Hongling looked down and saw Lin Miao pointing to a wheel mark on the ground. Wan Hongling exclaimed, "There's a wheel mark? But this mark looks like a bicycle." As she said this, she squatted on the ground and carefully looked at the lines on it. Then she raised her head and said strangely, "No, the tires of a bicycle have patterns. This one is neat and smooth, like..." At this time, Zhou Qin said, "Like the wheel mark of an ox cart or a carriage." Wan Hongling hurriedly said, "Yes, no matter what kind of car it is, there is a wheel mark, which means that there is someone. Let's follow this wheel mark all the way. I'm sure we can find him. Once we find him, we can ask about his whereabouts." Zhou Qin couldn't help showing a happy expression and praised, "Yes, what you said makes sense." Lin Miao also said happily, "Then let's hurry up." The three women's spirits were roused, and they immediately pulled themselves together, following the wheel marks to chase after it. They chased all the way, but they didn't know how long they had been chasing. They only felt that when the sun was burning, they were a little exhausted. Even Zhou Qin, who had always been mentally tough, couldn't bear it anymore. When she was about to give up, she suddenly saw a small black spot in the distance. Zhou Qin looked over and saw that the black spot looked like a city. She was overjoyed and quickly said, "Come on, look over there." Wan Hongling and Lin Miao looked up and were overjoyed. They gathered all their remaining strength and rushed straight to the place where the city was. At this time, they seemed to be very close, but they had been flying for a long time. When they landed and walked all the way to the foot of the city, they were suddenly stunned. In front of them was an incomparably huge and majestic city. The city walls were more than 50 meters tall, and the city walls stretched out in all directions, as if they were going to extend to the end of the world. On the east side of the city walls, there were 9 huge arches. The one in the middle was the largest, more than 10 meters tall, and wide enough for 10 horses to pass through at the same time. At the entrance of the city stood a towering stone statue, more than 30 meters tall. This stone statue was a scene of a tall and sturdy man fighting bare-handed with a lion and a fierce tiger. The scene was very lifelike, and it looked as if it was alive. Zhou Qin walked to the city gate and saw that there were people coming and going everywhere. These people were wearing very simple linen clothes, but they were dressed like ancient people. Some were riding ox carts, some were riding carriages, and some were riding some strange beasts that she couldn't tell the name of. These people gathered together like a trickle, flowing from all directions into this majestic city. Although she was a strange woman with high cultivation, standing in front of this majestic city, she suddenly felt that she was as small as an ant. However, this was not what shocked her the most. What stunned her, Wan Hongling, and Lin Miao the most was that there were 2 ancient characters written on the gate plate of this tall and majestic city, which read, Zhaoga. == There was still one more chapter in the afternoon or evening, but it should be in the afternoon. Chapter 907. Zhou Qin and Wan Hongling stood at the foot of Zhaoga city in a daze. They rubbed their eyes hard and said in unison, Zhaoga? Zhaoga, the capital of the Shang dynasty? Zhou Qin stood there in a daze, her mouth opened so wide that her fist could be stuffed in. Lin Miao, who was beside her, also stammered, We came to 3,000 years ago. Although Zhou Qin and Wan Hongling felt that it was absurd, Wan Hongling soon reacted. She clapped her hands and said, Oh, I know. The azure glass mirror has the ability to penetrate time and space, and the purple gold Luo Yupan has the ability to set up parallel worlds. Did these two powerful magical weapons bring us to the Shang dynasty 3,000 years ago? Lin Miao, who was standing to one side, asked in a daze, but why is it not the Xia dynasty, the Zhou dynasty, or any other dynasty, but the Shang dynasty? Zhou Qin and Wan Hongling looked at each other. The two of them suddenly gasped at Lin Miao's question. Zhou Qin couldn't help but say in a cold voice, Could it be, because of Su Daji? Su Daji was a household name in China. Even a half-baked person like Lin Miao knew her name. Lin Miao was shocked and cried out involuntarily, Ah! Su Daji. Is she the nine-tailed celestial fox? What's her relationship with the mystical silver fox? The few of them looked at each other and secretly felt that it was possible. Otherwise, why did they have to come to this era? In the eyes of cultivators, although reincarnation was mysterious and magical, it was not something unacceptable. Regardless of whether it was Taoism or Buddhism, they all believed that reincarnation existed. Bubble. Book. However, Taoists said that reincarnation was ascension, corpse disintegration, and soldier's disintegration. The most famous of them was the fifth ancestor of Zen in China. He was a Taoist priest when he was alive, but after cultivating to a certain extent, he felt that he could no longer cultivate. He had reached a bottleneck, so he turned to Buddhism for help. At this time, the fifth patriarch Hongren found the fourth patriarch of the Zen sect, Daoxin, and said that he wanted to become his disciple. But Daoxin thought that Hongren was too old, an old man with a white beard, so he said to him, You are too old, I can't teach you. Therefore, fifth ancestor Hongren immediately disintegrated in front of Dao Xian. After a few years, he reincarnated into a little baby and came to find fourth ancestor Dao Xian, saying that he had become younger and that he could teach him now. In addition, the earliest cultivator, Peng Zhu, and the founder of the Wudang sect, Zhang Sanfeng, had lived for 800 years and lived through the Xia, Shang, and Zhou dynasties. People had also seen traces of him during the spring and autumn period. The other was born during the southern Song dynasty and lived through the Yuan and Ming dynasties, living for more than 400 years. In the eyes of ordinary people, these two people were longevity stars who were good at maintaining good health. But in fact, cultivators themselves knew that these two people must have been dead many times, or they had been reincarnated several times. Otherwise, any tangible matter in the world would never be destroyed, and the human body was no exception. The cultivators of both Buddhism and Taoism cultivated the spirit, and the body was just a carrier. In the world, there was only an indestructible yang spirit Jinshin, and there was no immortal body. As the saying goes, everyone has died since ancient times. These were all famous cases recorded in the history of Buddhism and Taoism. Zhou Qin and Wan Hongling naturally knew about them, so they only expressed shock at the beginning when this thing suddenly appeared 3,000 years ago, but they soon came to their senses. They just thought about the relationship between the mystical silver fox and Su Daji in their hearts. Zhou Qin couldn't help looking up at Zhaoga City. It seemed that there was a beautiful and strange figure hidden behind the tall city wall. The power left by the mystical silver fox in Su Yi seemed to be still vivid in her mind. Zhou Qin thought for a moment and said, Anyway, let's find a way to find Master first. Wan Hongling nodded and said, That's right. It's a pity that I don't know what era it is now. As she spoke, she saw an old man in a coarse shirt passing by. She grabbed the old man and asked, Old man, may I ask you, what year is it now? How many years has King Zhou been in power? Wan Hongling knew that the capital of the Shang dynasty, Zhaoga, was in the period of King Zhou of Shang. This city was called Zhaoga, so the king in power at this time must be King Zhou, but she didn't know if Daji had entered the palace. When the old man was pulled by her, he just looked at them strangely, but as soon as he heard the word King Zhou, his face suddenly changed, as if he had seen a ghost. He broke free from her hand, turned around, and fled into the city. As the old man ran, he turned his head to look at them, as if he was afraid that they would run away. Ruan Hongling looked at the old man in confusion and shouted, "Hey, why are you running?" As she said this, she turned her head and said to Zhou Qin in confusion, "Zhou Qin, did we scare him away because our clothes were too strange?" Zhou Qin frowned slightly and felt that something was wrong, but she couldn't tell what was wrong, so she said, "It's possible. Who knows what people in this dynasty talk like?" While the two of them were guessing suspiciously, Lin Miao, who was beside them, suddenly pointed to the city gate and said, "Look." Zhou Qin and Ruan Hongling looked in the direction of her finger, only to see the old man running all the way to the guards at the gate, pointing at them while looking at them. Lin Miao said worriedly, "Did this person go to the police?" Ruan Hongling laughed and said, "There are no police in this era. Call the police? It's okay. Maybe he saw that we were dressed strangely, so he came up to ask." As soon as she finished speaking, a group of soldiers walked out of the door. They wore bronze armor and held bronze spears in their hands. The person in the lead wore a bronze helmet and held a 3-foot-long bronze sword. He was obviously the leader of the group. The man was tall and burly. He came to Zhou Qin, Ruan Hongling, and Lin Miao, pointed at the three of them, and shouted, "Arrest these rebels." His accent was a little strange, with a slight Hunan accent, but Zhou Qin, Ruan Hongling, and Lin Miao all understood it. The two of them were slightly shocked, and Lin Miao asked in confusion, "GFA? Is it King Wen of Zhou?" Zhou Qin turned to look at her and said with a wry smile, "You've read a lot of books." "Yes, it's King Wen of Zhou. If I'm not mistaken, King Wen of Zhou should have rebelled by now." Ruan Hongling also said curiously, "Why are they so sure that we are Ji Chang's party? I don't even know what Ji Chang looks like. Isn't he the biggest monster in the world?" When the leader of the guards saw the three of them chattering, as if they didn't take him seriously at all, he immediately became furious and shouted to his subordinates, "Take them down." These guards immediately surrounded Zhou Qin and the other two. Although it was a little inexplicable, Zhou Qin was skilled and bold. Relying on her high cultivation, she didn't take these people seriously. In addition, they found that she had come to the last years of the Shang dynasty through the glass mirror and the purple gold luoyu plate, so they were more curious. Their previous nervousness and worry had been diluted a lot. Ruan Hongling also knew that these soldiers did not pose a threat to them, so she said with a smile, "Why are you so fierce? We are not Ji Chang's party. Hey, is King Zhou still here? If he is, take us to see him." The leader of the guards flew into a rage. "How dare you say that you are not Ji Chang's traitor? Catch them and cut them into pieces." The soldiers shouted in unison and stabbed at Zhou Qin, Ruan Hongling, and Lin Miao with their spears. Zhou Qin frowned and was about to make a move when she saw Ruan Hongling snort. A red light flashed beside her and swept across the copper spears in the hands of these soldiers like lightning. Suddenly, with a cracking sound, the copper spears were all cut off by Ruan Hongling's powerful magical weapon. Ruan Hongling's powerful magical weapon was similar to Zi Yuan's, but it was a reduced version. Not only was it smaller, but it was also square, like a small and exquisite handkerchief. These soldiers were shocked and their weapons were cut off by the red caltrop handkerchief. They all retreated in unison. Ruan Hongling smiled proudly and said, "How about it? Do you still want to take us back? Hey, take us to King Zhou obediently." The leader of the guards was shocked and couldn't help but take a step back. He shouted at Ruan Hongling fiercely, "Which sect are you from? How dare you make an enemy of my king? Aren't you afraid that your body and soul will be destroyed?" Ruan Hongling looked up to the sky and laughed. "You scared me to death. If you have the ability, come at me." Zhou Qin said in a low voice, "Hey, aren't you being too arrogant?" Wan Hongling tilted her head slightly, chuckled, and said, "I have my own brilliant plan." "Don't worry." Zhou Qin thought for a moment and asked, "Do you want to make a big deal out of this so that master will notice it?" Wan Hongling smiled and said, "You are indeed the famous human immortal, Jinren Zhou. You are amazing. You know what I am thinking." Zhou Qin smiled and said, "That's a good idea, but..." Before she could finish her words, she saw the soldiers retreat like a tide. Even the people at the city gate had left. She was slightly stunned. Just as she felt that something was wrong, she saw many people suddenly fly out of the city. Each of them was dressed in strange clothes and holding various powerful magical weapons. The leader was dressed in a white silk robe, with one arm exposed. He was holding a golden iron whip in his hand. There was an angry round eye between his eyebrows, which was emitting 3 feet of divine light. He looked majestic and powerful. Zhou Qin looked over and saw that the leader was shrouded in an extremely strong force. Although she was a master of thunder retribution, when this person's eyes swept over her, she immediately felt the hair all over her body stand on end, and a chill ran down her spine. Although Wan Hongling's cultivation was not high, she was also a knowledgeable person. She looked at this group of people with her mouth agape and tongue tied. She saw that the leader's cultivation was extremely high, even comparable to Li Yundong's. She couldn't help but be dumbfounded and said, "No way. This is a master at the 9th level of heaven." But this was not the end. Before Wan Hongling could react, she saw another 100 people flying up from behind these people, all of them surrounded by a layer of golden light. Wan Hongling was scared silly. Oh my god, are they all golden bodies? When did the golden body become so worthless? Zhou Qin was also so shocked that her face turned ashen. She didn't even know how to speak. When she met a great master at the level of thunder retribution, she still dared to go forward and fight. But this time, a master at the 9th level of heaven came down, and another 6 masters of thunder retribution came, followed by more than 100 golden body fighters. How could they fight? Were they courting death? Even the reincarnation of Auspicious Sky couldn't withstand the siege of so many people. Not to mention the reincarnation of Auspicious Sky, even the mystical silver fox couldn't withstand it. Lin Miao's face was as white as paper. He said, "It's over. I didn't expect that I would die 3,000 years ago. I wonder if anyone will be able to find my relics after 3,000 years. At this moment, the 3 of them didn't even have the consciousness to resist. They were ready to be captured, but at this moment, a figure flashed to their side, and a familiar voice shouted, "3 idiots, hurry up and leave." Chapter 908. When Zhou Qin heard this voice, she was overjoyed. She was very familiar with this voice, which made her worried. She immediately shouted, "Master." When Wan Hongling and Lin Miao saw Li Yundong appear beside them in an instant, they were both overjoyed. Lin Miao said loudly, "Master, we finally found you." Wan Hongling laughed and said, "You came at the right time. Let's teach these guys a lesson together." Li Yundong glared at her angrily and grabbed her and Lin Miao in his arms. After saying this, he turned around and ran away. Zhou Qin, run. In Zhou Qin's impression, she had never seen Li Yundong turn around and run away when he met an enemy, especially now that he had obtained the real body of Wisdom King. His strength was incredibly strong, but he didn't even fight. Zhou Qin was stunned. What's going on? Zhou Qin was stunned for a moment and didn't react. At this time, Su Chan's figure also appeared out of thin air and answered crisply. Her face was full of anxiety. She pulled Zhou Qin up and said, "Sister Zhou Qin, don't stay here. Let's go. If we don't leave now, it will be too late." Zhou Qin was pulled by her and flew more than 10 meters away in the blink of an eye. As soon as she left the ground, she saw the golden iron whip in the hand of the man with another eye between his eyebrows fall with a bang, and in an instant, the ground sank deeply. This happened suddenly and without warning. 1 second, the golden whip was still in the man's hand, and the next second, it had already smashed in the place where she had been. If Su Chan hadn't pulled her, she would have been smashed into meat paste. Zhou Qin's body shook and she cried out in horror, "Who is this person? What kind of powerful magical weapon is this? It's amazing." Su Chan didn't have time to say anything more to her. She just gritted her teeth and chased after Li Yundong's figure like crazy. After they flew more than 100 miles in one breath, the people behind them gave up the chase. The man with the golden whip snorted angrily and took the lead to fly back. Li Yundong didn't dare to be careless. He held Wan Hongling and Lin Miao under his armpits and flew for more than 100 miles. Then he stopped and shouted angrily with lingering fear, "Why are you guys here? Why are you so arrogant? Do you know where this is and what era it is? Do you want to die?" Wan Hongling's face and ears turned red as she struggled with all her might. She didn't know if it was because her blood was not flowing smoothly because of Li Yundong's arm, or because she was angry out of humiliation. She shouted, "Put me down." Only then did Li Yunyang loosen his grip. Wan Hongling and Lin Miao cried out at the same time and fell to the ground. Wan Hongling jumped up and said angrily with her hands on her hips, "Hey, the three of us risked our lives to find you. It's okay that you didn't say a word of thanks when you saw us, but you even scolded us? Are you kidding me?" Li Yundong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Who told you to come to me? Isn't this just adding 1 yuan?" Wan Hongling remembered that her Shiji had been so worried about Li Yundong, and that she had come to this inexplicable 3,000 years ago to save him, but this bastard didn't appreciate it at all. She was furious. Wan Hongling wiped her eyes and said angrily, all right. We're useless. We'll help you. You're very capable. You don't need others to help you." As she said this, she said to Lin Miao, who had gotten up and was patting the dust off his body, "Hey, Lin Miao, let's go. Let's go back. Some people here don't need us." Lin Miao raised his head blankly. What are you talking about? I don't understand." Su Chan, who had been watching Wan Hongling and Li Yundong quarreling, didn't know how to persuade them. But at this time, Lin Miao, who was caught in the middle, pretended to be stupid, suddenly made her laugh. Lin Miao was very good at Chinese. How could he not understand at this time? Wan Hongling was exasperated. "Lin Miao, why are you pretending? Don't you understand what I said?" Lin Miao smiled embarrassedly and said, "I just fell and was in a daze. I didn't hear you. What did you say just now?" Wan Hongling stamped her feet and said, "Well, you can't get along with me either. You have a different mind. If you don't go, I'll go." After that, she angrily stomped her feet, turned around, and left. Li Yundong looked at her back and laughed angrily. He shouted, "Hey, where are you going? Do you know how to go back?" Wan Hongling stopped in her tracks and immediately turned her head angrily. "It's none of your business. Weren't you very fierce just now? How could we be idiots?" Li Yundong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "You still say you're not? I think all three of you are. You called their king King Zhou in front of the guards. He has a name, DXN. He's not called King Zhou. This is another name given by King Wen of Zhou and Ji Chang in order to slander King Zhou. It's just like how Emperor Yongzheng called his younger brothers Akaina and Sashai in anger." Wan Hongling was stunned again. She said unconvinced, "How would I know that King Wen of Zhou had already rebelled at this time?" The two of them quarreled fiercely. At this time, Zhou Qin couldn't help but stand up and say, Okay, don't be angry. Master is also worried about our safety. We'll be there soon." As she said this, she walked over and took Wan Hongling's hand. "Don't be angry. I think Master is afraid that if something happens to you, he won't be able to help Ziyuan." As she said this, she turned to Li Yundong and said with a smile, "Isn't that right, master?" As she spoke, she winked at Li Yundong. However, Wan Hongling didn't buy it. She sneered and said, "Come on, don't talk about it. You're the same as my Shiji. You're all different. Humph, you weren't as powerful as me before, but now you're powerful enough to show off." Her words were unforgiving, but in the end, she didn't take another step forward. Wan Hongling also knew that if she got separated from Li Yundong and the others in this unfamiliar place, she would probably stay in this damn place for the rest of her life and never be able to go back. However, Wan Hongling had always been sharp-tongued. Although she admitted defeat in her heart, she refused to admit defeat verbally. Li Yundong also knew her temper, so he smiled bitterly and said, okay, it's all my fault, okay? Wan Hongling had been ridiculed by him. Li Yundong had no choice but to turn his face and say helplessly to Zhou Qin, "Why did you think of coming here? How did you get here?" Zhou Qin looked at Li Yundong fixedly and said, "Master, you and Su Chan suddenly disappeared. Do you know how worried Zi Yuan and I were? We thought you had." As she said this, her voice trembled slightly, but she couldn't continue. Su Chan, who was standing to one side, also tried to persuade him, "Yundong, they have good intentions. Don't blame them. There is strength in numbers. If we work together, we might be more powerful." Li Yundong glared at her and said, "More powerful? Then why did we run just now?" When Su Chan saw that Li Yundong was speaking softly to Wan Hongling and Zhou Qin, she immediately pouted and muttered in a low voice, "You're so annoying. You only know how to be fierce to me." Li Yundong ignored her little girl's thoughts. He turned his head and said loudly to Zhou Qin, "Do you know who the man with the golden whip just now was?" His loud voice seemed to be directed at Zhou Qin, but in fact, it was for Wan Hongling, who was next to him. Zhou Qin naturally knew and asked cooperatively, "Who is that person?" Although Wan Hongling was indignant, she also pricked up her ears curiously. Li Yundong looked at Zhou Qin speechlessly and said, "Grand Tutor One, this person is Grand Tutor One." Zhou Qin was shocked. "Ah. Grand Tutor One? Is Grand Tutor One so powerful?" At this time, Wan Hongling had no time to be at odds with Li Yundong. She said in surprise, "Then is he the legendary Golden Whip of God?" Li Yundong nodded. Grand Tutor One is a great master who is only one step away from becoming a golden immortal. If I fight with him alone, I only have a 50% chance of winning. Don't you see that he has so many powerful helpers behind him? Moreover, do you know how many masters there are in Zhaoga City? Moreover, do you know that sect leader Tong Tian, heavenly primogenitor, and Taoist Juanti are all watching from the side?" Zhou Qin and Lin Miao listened with their eyes wide open. They didn't feel very shocked, but Wan Hongling, an inner disciple of an orthodox cultivator, was so shocked that her mouth was wide open. "Ah. Tong, sect leader Tong Tian, heavenly primogenitor, and Taoist Juanti are also here? Why didn't I see them?" The name Taoist Juanti sounded a little strange. He was originally the second sect leader of Western Taoism. Later, he abandoned Taoism and became a Buddhist, so he became the famous Master Bodhi in the future. On the other hand, the names Tong Tian's sect leader and Yuanshi Tianzuan were simply too deafening. Wan Hongling herself was a genuine Taoist disciple, and Taoism worshipped the three clear emperors, namely the Grand Clear Taishang Lao Jun, the Yin Qin Yuanshi Tianzuan, and the Prime Clear Tong Tian sect leader. But two of the three main gods had come at once. What did this mean? This was equivalent to believers of Jesus Christ seeing God, believers of Muslims seeing Allah, believers of Buddhists seeing Buddha himself. Li Yundong said to Wan Hongling with a wry smile, "I can feel their existence, but you can't." Wan Hongling also knew that if she could sense the existence of sect leader Tong Tian and heavenly primogenitor, then these two guys would not be the three gods of Taoism, but imitations. Wan Hongling was a little confused and said, "But why did they come here instead of staying in the Purple Cloud Palace?" Li Yundong looked at Wan Hongling with a strange face and said, "Haven't you figured it out yet? I wonder what dynasty this is." "The Shang dynasty," Wan Hongling said in surprise. Li Yundong said, "Yes, don't you know that King Wen of Zhou, Ji Chang, has rebelled and is about to attack Xiaoga? The War of God's investiture is in full swing." "The War of God's investiture?" Zhou Qin and Lin Miao suddenly said in unison. Li Yundong nodded and said with a serious face, "That's right." Zhou Qin's heart skipped a beat, and she said thoughtfully, "Could it be that the mystical silver fox came to this era on purpose?" Li Yundong shook his head and said, "I don't know about that. However, if I'm not wrong, Su Daji should be the previous incarnation of the mystical silver fox. The reason why the mystical silver fox came here is probably to seize Su Daji's strength and body when she was defeated and fled, and then to make a comeback. There will be another update in a minute." Chapter 909. When Zhou Qin and the others heard Li Yundong's words, they immediately exclaimed in shock, "What? Su Daiji was the previous incarnation of the mystical silver fox?" Li Yundong looked at them with a strange expression. Don't you know? Don't you know why the War of God's investiture started?" Zhou Qin asked with a strange look on her face, "Why?" Wan Hongling opened her mouth and said, "Could it be because of the dispute between the three religions?" Li Yundong glanced at her and smiled. "An inner disciple is indeed an inner disciple. You are indeed different. Yes, it is indeed because of this reason." As he spoke, Li Yundong told the whole story from the beginning to the end with confidence and composure. After Pangu created the world, the 3 souls and 7 spirits turned into 1 qi. After Taoist Hong Jun found out, he turned this qi into the 3 pure ones, which were Heavenly Lord Yuanshi, Taishang Lao Jun, and sect leader Tong Tian. Hong Jun became the most transcendent god after Pangu, and the 3 pure ones were his 3 eldest disciples. They were in charge of Taoism, Chan school, and Jie school respectively. These 3 sects monopolized the 3 realms of heaven, earth, and human, which made their status superior, and thus caused many later cultivators to be dissatisfied. At the same time, Taoist Hong Jun also found that the boundary between the heaven realm and the human realm was blurred. There were countless disciples of sect leader Tong Tian, and there were all kinds of people. The disciples of sect leader Tong Tian were everywhere in the heaven realm, and at the same time, there were immortals everywhere in the human realm. Moreover, these immortals occupied a mountain as kings, vaguely meaning to be kings of grass. Many people did not listen to Taoist Hong Jun's command. At this time, Taoist Hong Jun had an idea. He instructed his other 2 disciples, Haotian the Great and the Queen Mother, to establish the heavenly palace and the heaven realm. From then on, the boundary between the human realm and the heaven realm was divided. It meant to call back all the immortals who had become bandits in the human world, so that they would not behave atrociously outside all day long. But after a while, Haotian the Great, who was also the Jade Emperor, ran to ancestor Hong Jun and cried, "Boss, my heavenly palace has been established for a long time, but no one has come. You want me and the Queen Mother of the West to guard an empty heavenly palace? What the hell are you doing?" Old ancestor Hong Jun thought about it. Indeed, this was not a good idea. Those immortals who fooled around in the human world were used to being wild. Each and every one of them was free and unfettered, enjoying the incense of the human world. Who would be willing to be controlled by the heavenly palace? Therefore, ancestor Hong Jun called his 3 disciples over and said, "Your little brother, Great Emperor Hao Tian, is going to build the heavenly court. For the sake of our relationship, each of you should contribute some people." When the 3 pure ones heard this, they thought, "What? You want to poach people from me?" "No, absolutely not." Old Lord Taishang was the first to complain. "Boss Hong Jun, I only have 1 disciple. Don't tell me you want to poach my disciple as well." Hong Jun had to turn his head and say to Heavenly Lord Yuanshi, "You are my eldest disciple. Give me some face and send a few disciples over." You have a lot of disciples, right? Heavenly Lord Yuancher spread out his hands and said, Boss, I have 12 golden immortals under me. Why don't you see which one is suitable to be picked? The 12 golden immortals under Heavenly Lord Yuancher were famous. All of them were earth-shattering. The leader was the teacher of Yellow Emperor Xianyuan, Guang Chengzi, followed by Taoist Huang Long, Immortal Tai, Heavenly Lord Guang Fa, Taoist Sihang, Chijingzi, Ju Lu Sun, Master Lingbao, Samantabhadra, Immortal Yuding, and Lord Qingshu. Among them, Heavenly Lord Guang Fa, Taoist Sihang, and Samantabhadra were the most familiar to the world. In the future, they would abandon Taoism and become Buddhism. One was the famous Manjushri Bodhisattva, one was Guanyin Bodhisattva, and the last one was Samantabhadra. Each of these 12 golden immortals were masters of their own mountains. They were powerful and influential. They were not people to be trifled with. If they went to the heavenly palace to be conferred as gods, it would be bad if they created a ruckus. Hong Jun could only look at sect leader Tong Tian and said, Third brother, you have the most people. Why don't you send a few helpers? Sect leader Tong Tian was heroic. He wanted to agree at first, but Taishang Laojun and Heavenly Lord Yuancher were fanning the flames at the side. Yes, you have the most people. If you don't send people, who will? Sect leader Tong Tian had the temper of a donkey. It would have been better if he didn't say it. Once he said it, his temper came. What? You want me to send people just because you asked me to? I won't. What are you going to do? Because of this, the three pure ones parted on bad terms. Ancestor Hong Jun was also helpless. He could only say to the tearful Jade Emperor, Haotian, wait patiently. I will send a list of deification down. Let those whose names are on the list come here to be officials. Jade Emperor asked with a sad face, but whose names are on the list? Besides, with their names, what if they don't come? Hong Jun had no choice but to say, if they don't come, let them go through the tribulation. I will beat them until they have nowhere to go. Then they will come, right? The last years of the Shang dynasty was the last era of miracles in China's history. In this era, people and gods lived together. It was an era where genuine Jinshin could be found everywhere. The thunder tribulations were as numerous as dogs. You could meet several Jinshin masters when you went out to buy breakfast. If you threw a brick from the roof, you could hit a thunder tribulations master. In this era, there were deities everywhere, turning the land into a king. Everyone believed in deities, and those from slightly better families all cultivated. Moreover, the mainland of China at this time was truly filled with natural treasures. There were exotic beasts everywhere, and the land was not overly exploited. Therefore, there were spiritual mountains and treasured lands everywhere. In the future, elixirs and medicines that were hard to come by were everywhere in this era. In this era, if you did not cultivate to the thunder tribulations realm, you would be embarrassed to greet others. Those with slightly better cultivations all had their eyes on the top of their heads and lived a carefree and happy life in their own small territories. In the eyes of the later generations, becoming a god was an incomparably glorious and great thing, but in their eyes, it was really the most difficult thing in the world. If they could be a boss, why would they want to be someone else's helper? Therefore, the Jade Emperor also knew that even if Hong Jun came out of the list of deification, none of these guys would be willing to come. But according to Hong Jun, if they came, it would definitely cause chaos. The three realms of heaven, earth, and man would be in chaos. At this time, the Western sect master, Taoist Juandi, who would be the future ancestor Bodhi, keenly sensed the disharmony between the three sections. He had been assigned to the Western world by Hong Jun, but what kind of place was the Western world? It was Xinjiang. Although there were immortal treasures like Kunlun Mountain and Heaven Lake, there were more places in the desert. Moreover, this place was sparsely populated. How could there be incense offerings? Therefore, Ancestor Bodhi knew that if he wanted to be promoted, he had to disturb the central world. Therefore, he suggested, Master Hong Jun, now that the human realm is the world of Chengtang, why don't you let the Emperor of Qingtang come to the Heaven Realm, discuss with him, and then ask him to cooperate? Hearing that, Hongjun thought, not bad, this is a good idea. But I can't see the Emperor of the human realm. Otherwise, all the emperors will come to see me in the future. Won't I be annoyed to death? Let him see Goddess Nviwa. Man was created by Goddess Nviwa, so naturally, she was in charge. Although Hongjuan's idea was good, it could not stop Ancestor Bodhi's ulterior motives. When King Zhou heard that Goddess Nviwa wanted to see him, he was instantly overjoyed. He took a bath and changed his clothes, dressed up properly, and went to the Goddess Nviwa's temple. But at this time, Ancestor Bodhi plotted against him behind his back. He used the art of seduction to confuse his mind, making King Zhou lose his mind. Then, he left an obscene poem on the stone pillar of the Goddess Nviwa's temple. This time, he made a big mistake. Goddess Nviwa was furious. F***ck, I created all your ancestors. How dare you flirt with me? You really don't know what's good for you. Then, she sent her strongest, most capable, and most beautiful subordinate to the mortal world, ready to disturb Qingtang's 600 years of rule. At this time, the vigorous Great War of Gods investiture officially began. Li Yundong spoke with confidence and composure. He was eloquent to begin with. At this time, his words were so eloquent that Zhou Qin, Wan Hongling, and Lin Miao were really stunned. It took them a long time to come back to their senses. Lin Miao stammered, this most capable and beautiful subordinate of Goddess Nviwa. Could it be the mystical silver fox? Li Yundong said with emotion, in that life, she was not called the mystical silver fox, but the nine-tailed celestial fox. At that time, the nine-tailed fox was still a god worshipped by the world. Su Chan also sighed softly and said, yes, at that time, we fox spirits still enjoyed the offerings and incense of the human world. But since the Tang dynasty, no one has believed in the nine-tailed celestial fox anymore. Lin Miao was curious and asked, I know you the Great. He is one of the three sovereigns in Yao Shun Yu's story. What was the result? Did he marry her? Su Chan nodded and said with a smile, yes. Yu the Great later married the nine-tailed white fox. As she spoke, she looked at Li Yundong happily, as if Li Yundong was going to marry her in the next second. Li Yundong tapped her nose with a smile and said, why are you smiling so stupidly? Su Chan giggled and said, nothing, I'm just smiling. The two of them were talking and laughing. Zhou Qin, who was standing to one side, finally came to her senses from what Li Yundong had said. She asked in confusion, but, isn't this the content of Investiture of the Gods? Li Yundong looked at Zhou Qin with a strange expression. Didn't Journey to the West also talk about Marshal Tianpeng? I met Lin Youfa before. This old guy asked Marshal Tianpeng to possess him several times. At that time, I almost couldn't beat him. As he said this, he smiled and said to Zhou Qin, tell me, how did Master Guan become a god? His title is not small, and his divine power is far superior to that of the Holy Emperor Guan. Zhou Qin said tentatively, could it be that he became a god after the romance of the Three Kingdoms? Li Yundong clapped his hands and said, that's right. In the first year of Chongning, Emperor Huizong of the Northern Song dynasty, he was only posthumously recognized as Duke Zhonghui. In the third year of Chongning, he was posthumously recognized as Zhenjuan Chongning. Although he had been promoted, he was still a human being. At the end of the Yuan dynasty and the beginning of the Ming dynasty, when the romance of the Three Kingdoms came out, he was immediately promoted to a very high position. In the 42nd year of Wanli, during the period of the Ming Shan sect, Emperor Wanli conferred him the title of the Holy Emperor Guan. From then on, Master Guan officially became a god. Only then did Zhou Qin understand. Ah, I finally understand what Master meant when you said that Buddha fights for an incense stick. When the common people think that you have become a god, then you are a god. So in order to compete for the faith of the common people, sects fight with each other. Whoever has more believers will have more power? Li Yundong nodded with a smile and said, yes, that's what I mean. As he spoke, he sighed and said, in the last years of the Shang dynasty, before the Great War of Gods investiture began, human beings and gods lived together, so the common people could see flying immortals every day. Naturally, they believed in gods. But after the Great War of Gods investiture, immortals were no longer allowed to live in the world, and mortals were not allowed to go to the heaven realm. Because of the separation between human beings and gods, there was no more contact. Slowly, the common people did not believe in gods as before. At this time, Wan Hongling asked in confusion, after saying so much, what should we do? How can we find the mystical silver fox? Li Yundong looked at them helplessly and said, Su Chan and I originally wanted to hide aside with the help of the invisibility talisman of the goddess Nenya's seal and watch the situation in secret, waiting for the mystical silver fox or Su Daiji to appear. If the mystical silver fox comes forward to seize Su Daiji's true body of the nine-tailed celestial fox, then we will go forward to intercept her. If she doesn't show up, we will find a way to find her true body and make plans. Wan Hongling looked at him unhappily and said, why do I feel that there seems to be something else in your tone? Sure enough, Li Yundong sighed and said, but you suddenly appeared and alerted the snake. Now, we are all exposed. The mystical silver fox must have known that we followed her and chased after her. I think she won't show up easily again. Only then did Wan Hongling know what a big mistake she had made. She was a little annoyed in her heart, but she refused to admit defeat. She said stubbornly, then let's go find Su Daiji. Isn't the mystical silver fox looking for her? Let's take Su Daiji directly and see if she comes out. As she said this, she felt that her idea was really wonderful, so she said proudly, this is called catching the king first to catch the thief. Chapter 9-10. Li Yundong and Su Chan were stunned by Wan Hongling's words, and they looked at each other in dismay. Seeing their expressions, Wan Hongling couldn't help but feel guilty. She braced herself and said, what? Isn't it wrong to capture the leader first? Li Yundong said with a wry smile, it's easy for you to say. I won't talk about whether Su Daiji is powerful or not, but do you know how many masters there are in Zhaoga City? I won't talk about Grand Tutor One. This is Universal Tianzuan, who will be conferred the title of Jiutian Ingyuan Thunder God in the future. I think you also know that he is the Thunder God of the Heavenly Palace, the commander of the 24 main gods, and his divine power is amazing. Moreover, do you know who the number one master in Zhaoga City is? Wan Hongling asked curiously, isn't it Grand Tutor One? Li Yundong shook his head and said, I used to think it was Grand Tutor One like you, but when I came here, I realized that the number one master of the Shang dynasty was not Grand Tutor One, but someone you could never imagine. At this time, not only was Wan Hongling curious, but Zhou Qin and Lin Miao also asked curiously, who is it? Li Yundong said with a strange expression, King Zhou. Ah! The three women gasped at the same time. King Zhou of Shang? No way. He is the number one master? Li Yundong said, yes, think about it. King Zhou went to see Goddess Nviwa and left a poem to flirt with her. Why didn't Goddess Nviwa kill him immediately for such a sin? With Goddess Wa's divine power, it should be no problem for her to kill an ordinary mortal, right? Zhou Qin said curiously, yes, then why didn't Goddess Wa do it herself? Is it because she doesn't want to dirty her hands? Li Yunyang sneered and said, don't joke. King Zhou is the supreme emperor of the mortal world after all. His status is high. Although he is not as high as Goddess Wa, his status is not lower than those golden immortals in the world. The reason why she didn't do it herself is very simple, because she can't beat him. Zhou Qin and Wan Hongling didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Ah! How could Goddess Wa lose to King Zhou? Are you kidding me? At this time, Su Chan said very seriously, it's not a joke. Yundong and I wanted to sneak into the imperial palace of Zhaoga City. As soon as we approached a kilometer away from the palace, we could feel an extremely powerful force surging toward us, as if a pair of invisible eyes were staring at us. Ruan Hongling looked at Li Yundong doubtfully, only to see him nodding in agreement. Only then did she believe him and ask, could it be Grand Tutor Wen? Or the primordial Lord of Heaven and the others? Li Yundong shook his head and said, no, the aura is different. This kind of aura is very powerful and majestic. It's different from the aura of ordinary golden immortals. Zhou Qin was tongue-tied and said, but. There is no record in the book that King Zhou is so powerful. They only said that he was extremely strong and could fight lions and tigers empty-handed. Li Yundong sighed and said, the books also say that cultivation is futile. Think about it, in this era, people and gods are living together. Those with slightly better backgrounds are cultivating, and even those with poorer backgrounds are worshipping the gods. As an emperor, how could King Zhou not cultivate? I don't believe it even if you beat me to death. Zhou Qin opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but in the end, she swallowed her words. She didn't say it, but she didn't believe it in her heart. In her opinion, even if King Zhou was powerful, his power was extremely limited. At this time, Lin Miao saw that they hadn't come to the point after talking for a long time, so he couldn't help but say, what should we do now? Master, hurry up and make an idea. Li Yundong pondered for a while and said, in my opinion, we might as well wait here. When the troops of King Wu of Zhou, GFA, come to Zhaoga, this place will be a mess. At that time, no one will be in the mood to make trouble for us, and we can take the opportunity to fish in troubled waters. Ruan Hongling, who was on the side, finally found a topic to talk about. She scratched her cheek with her fingers and said, aren't you ashamed? You are the reincarnated Wisdom King, but you are so timid. Wait for King Wen of Zhou to come to Zhaoga? I'm afraid it will be too late. If he doesn't fight for a day, will we wait here? What if he doesn't fight for a year? What if he doesn't fight for 10 years? Li Yunyang glared at her and said, nonsense. I've heard people talking about it in Zhaoga City. They said that Zhou Wuang has already fought his way to the vicinity of Zhaoga City and will come here soon. Zhou Qin suddenly understood and said, ah, I see. No wonder Zhaoga City is so heavily guarded. So many people came here when we made a little noise. Li Yundong scolded with a smile, you call this a little noise? You call King Zhou, but that's what King Wen of Zhou and King Wu of Zhou call him. It would be strange if they didn't take you as a spy. Don't blame them for making a big noise. Zhou Qin smiled and said, Master, don't you also call him that? Li Yundong said with a smile, I won't call him that in front of his subordinates. What's the difference between that and a slap in the face? At this time, Lin Miao couldn't help but say, wait, I know I may be the most useless and have no right to speak, but what should we do now? Do we stay here and continue to wait? Li Yundong looked at Lin Miao and said, no, Lin Miao, tell me your idea. Lin Miao was a very assertive woman, which could be seen from the fact that she had resolutely gone from the west to the east and left Europe for Asia in order to pursue the path of cultivation. Although she maintained extreme awe for Li Yundong, she did not abandon her extremely rare independent thinking. She thought for a moment and said, Master, I think it's better for us to make a compromise. It doesn't seem good to keep waiting outside the city. If there is a fight over there, we will rush over. What if we are late? Li Yundong's heart skipped a beat. You mean, we should sneak into the city first, then hide and wait to see what happens? Zhou Qin's eyes also lit up and she praised, yes, that's a good idea. It's better than waiting here. Li Yundong was not a headstrong person. He thought for a moment and nodded. Okay, let's do as you say, Lin Miao. Ruan Hongling said proudly, look, it's my idea. Li Yundong, after you sneak into the city, in for a penny, in for a pound, in for a pound. Li Yundong glared at her angrily. You want to catch Dodgy, don't you? What's wrong with you? Why do you always have trouble with Dodgy? Our goal is the mystical silver fox. Ruan Hongling said curiously, the mystical silver fox is the reincarnation of Daji. If we kill her in her previous life, won't her reincarnation be gone? You're so stupid. Li Yundong said, yes, I'm stupid. You're smart. Jinren Ruan, can you go and fight with the fighters in Zhaoga City? Ruan Hongling curled her lips and said, of course I can't, but I didn't expect that you, the reincarnated Wisdom King, can't either. Humph, with so many of us helping you, you still don't dare. I really don't know what to say to you. Li Yundong was so angry that he laughed. It's because of your helpers that I can't beat them. Ruan Hongling was so angry that she screamed and made threatening gestures. What did you say? Li Yundong, don't think that I'm afraid of you just because your cultivation is high now. If you have the ability, say it again. Li Yundong smiled and said, I won't say good things twice. As he said this, he turned his head and said to Zhou Qin and Lin Miao beside him with a smile, I'm not talking about you. Don't think too much. Zhou Qin glanced at Ruan Hongling and pursed her lips into a smile. Lin Miao also chuckled. Li Yundong turned around and patted Su Chan's shoulder, who was trembling with laughter. He said, let's go back to Zhaoga City. As he said this, he left with Su Chan and the others. Only Ruan Hongling was so angry that she stamped her feet. She shouted behind Li Yundong, hey, Li, what do you mean? Am I the only one who is dragging my feet? Hey, make it clear. Li Yundong just turned a deaf ear to her. He smiled and enjoyed the scenery of China 3,000 years ago with Su Chan, Zhou Qin, and Lin Miao. Zhou Qin, Lin Miao, and the others had found Li Yundong, so they were relieved. Although they were in an era where Jinshin were everywhere and there were as many thunder tribulations as dogs, their cultivation was completely insignificant in this era, and their personal safety could not be guaranteed at all. They did not see the slightest worry. It seemed that as long as Li Yundong was by their side, even if all the gods and Buddhas came, they could sleep peacefully. The group of them chatted and laughed, just taking it as a sightseeing tour. When they arrived at the foot of Zhaoga City, the sun was already setting. In this era, the city gate closed very early. Before the sun set, the city gate was about to close. Li Yundong, Su Chan, and the others glanced at it and said, oh, the city gate is going to close. Hurry up and go in. Go in? Can't we fly in at night? Zhou Qin asked curiously. Li Yundong shook his head and said, are you kidding? There are so many masters in this city. If you fly in, you will have to mobilize your Zhenqi. As soon as you mobilize your Zhenqi, your breath will be exposed, and they will be able to discover your existence. Lin Miao asked curiously, then what should we do? Li Yundong glanced at her and had an idea. He said with a smile, you can pass if you cover your face with a cloth. Lin Miao blinked and looked down at her dress. She gritted her teeth, bent down, and tore off a large piece of the dress with a tearing sound. Then, she covered her face with it. Her voice came from behind the cloth, like this. Li Yundong, Su Chan, and the others looked at her and saw that she was dressed like an Arabian woman. They immediately laughed. Su Chan rolled her eyes at Li Yundong and reached out to pull the cloth off Lin Miao's face. She said, don't listen to his nonsense. He's making fun of you. Lin Miao didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Master. My dress is a limited edition Chanel Autumn 2009. You can't buy it now. Li Yundong pulled a long face and tried to hold back his laughter. He said, well, I'll give you a strong Taoist robe when we go back. It's guaranteed that you'll wear it for the rest of your life. Although Lin Miao was wholeheartedly devoted to the Tao, she still had a heart that loved beauty. Moreover, when she first thought about cultivation, it was because she knew that cultivation could allow her to maintain her youthfulness. She had also seen those female cultivators wearing Taoist robes, and from an aesthetic point of view, it was really not flattering. She was a woman who loved beauty very much. When she heard that Li Yundong wanted her to wear such a Taoist robe for the rest of her life, she didn't dare to say anything more. She quickly shut up and didn't dare to say anything more. At this time, Li Yundong smiled at Su Chan and said, "Great Fairy Su, hurry up and do the ritual. How about we go to Zhaoga City for a few days?" Su Chan giggled. Her cultivation was not low now, so it was really easy for her to get the Skyprolonging seal. She cast a little spell, and their figures disappeared. Li Yundong took them along the last stream of people to the city gate, holding their breath and waiting patiently for the people at the city gate to be checked one by one. Just as they were about to follow the souls in, an ear-piercing sound suddenly rang out. It was the ringtone of the theme song of Titanic, "My Heart Will Go On." At this time, there were few people at the city gate, and the guards at the gate were all listless and relaxed. However, the sudden ringing suddenly scared them and they shouted, "What's that sound?" Su Chan and the others were even more shocked. Li Yundong complained in his heart and thought, "What the hell, which idiot still has a mobile phone? You can wear it, but you have to turn off the sound and mute it. Even if you don't mute it, you have to turn on the vibration. You guys are too unreliable. This time I'm going to die because of you. Sorry, there are too many things to do today, so it's late. Sorry. Everyone, don't wait, it's the last update today. In addition, a book friend asked me about Ji Bokeo. Shouldn't this man be called Boi Cao in the book? In fact, this man's surname is Ji and his name is Cao. Bo is his seniority in the family. Bo is the highest, just like Bo Yi and Shu Qi. The seniority of people who are called Bo is high, and the seniority of people who are called Shu is low. The ancients have the habit of stuffing seniority into the name, so Bo Yi Cao is actually called Ji Bokeo. Chapter 9-11. Ever since Li Yundong had stepped into the cultivation world, some of his previous habits had slowly changed. In the past, he loved to play online games, watch TV shows and movies, and his mobile phone was always with him. But now, he was almost isolated from the internet, and he had no time to play games. He hadn't watched TV shows or movies for a long time, and he had almost forgotten what his mobile phone was for. Li Yundong had always believed that if a cultivator wanted to advance bravely on the road of cultivation, he must be single-minded and have nothing else. If he was worried about when he would receive a text message and who would look for him while he was cultivating, then he might as well stop cultivating and continue to be an otaku. Influenced by him, Zhou Qin had also developed the habit of not carrying a mobile phone. At first, the little girl had been fascinated by the mobile phone for a while, and then she had thrown it behind her head. Ruan Hongling was an inner disciple, so she hardly carried a mobile phone except when she went to school. Therefore, Li Yundong and the others knew that there was only one person here who had the habit of carrying a mobile phone. Lin Miao. Li Yundong, Su Chan, Zhou Qin, and Ruan Hongling looked at Lin Miao at the same time, and their eyes were so fierce that they seemed to want to eat her. Lin Miao reached into her pocket in a panic and quickly pressed the button on her cell phone. Her face was as white as a sheet of paper. She opened her mouth to apologize, but Su Chan, who was beside her, immediately covered her mouth and whispered in her ear, "Don't speak." At this time, the guards at the city gate were already holding long spears and copper spears. They glared at the people at the city gate and shouted angrily, "What was that sound just now? Tell me, tell me." These people were so scared that they trembled and said repeatedly, "I don't know, it wasn't me, it wasn't me." It was a critical moment when the soldiers were at the city gate. These guards had already been ordered to guard the city gate strictly. Although they were a little tired and relaxed after standing for a day, they were suddenly stimulated by the strange sound and immediately became highly vigilant like police dogs. How could they believe the words of these people? The leading guard pointed at the people at the city gate and shouted, "Search, search them one by one." Li Yunyang's face stiffened. They were caught in the middle of the people. If they searched one by one, they would inevitably collide with them. Once they collided with them, they would immediately notice that something was wrong. Moreover, this was an era where everyone cultivated, and it was also the twilight era of the gods in the mortal world. People in this era watched sex fight and immortals fight every day. They had seen all kinds of strange things. If modern people saw the goddess Nyan seal, they would probably be so shocked that they would think that they had lost their minds and were hallucinating. But people in this era would immediately understand what was going on when they saw it. If these guards found out that something was wrong, Li Yundong and the others would immediately be exposed. It would be a little difficult for them to escape this time. Li Yundong glared at Lin Miao and stretched out his hand, motioning for her to take out her mobile phone quickly. Lin Miao pulled out his phone with sweat all over his forehead. He looked like a primary school student who had done something bad. He lowered his head and didn't dare to look at Li Yundong. Li Yundong took the phone and looked at it. He was dumbfounded when he saw that there was a missed call on the screen. It was from Feng Na. Holy shit, what a scam! How could the signal from 3,000 years later be transmitted to 3,000 years ago? Was there a mistake? What was going on? Li Yundong stared at the phone and didn't say anything for a long time. Seeing that the guards were getting closer and closer, Zhou Qin couldn't help but feel anxious. She quickly pulled Li Yundong's hand and motioned for him to think of a way. Li Yundong looked up and saw that the guards in front of him were like wolves and tigers, forcing the people to open their bags and even take off their clothes. Most of the people knelt down and kowtowed to beg for mercy. An old man not far from him was kowtowing like pounding garlic. He said with a sad face, "Your Excellency, it's really not from here. Please forgive us." As he said this, he turned around and pointed, shouting, "The sound is coming from here." Li Yundong was furious. He held the phone, quietly mobilized his Jinshi, and put the phone in his hand into the pocket of the old man's clothes not far from him. His cultivation had reached the peak, so it was easier for him to put a mobile phone into the old man's pocket without anyone noticing. The old man's clothes were in tatters, and there was nothing good about them. Li Yundong put the mobile phone into his clothes, and it immediately fell out of the torn clothes and fell to the ground with a clatter. It immediately attracted everyone's attention, and they all looked over at the same time. The guards immediately surrounded the old man. They pointed at the phone on the ground and shouted angrily, "What is this? Tell me, why did it fall from your body?" The old man was speechless. His expression was uncertain, and a layer of cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He stammered, Your Excellency, listen to me. I don't know what this is and why it is with me." At this time, a guard came over with a torch, illuminating the surroundings. The leading guard looked down and picked up the phone. After looking at it carefully for a while, he suddenly glared at the old man and shouted, "How dare you quibble? How dare you deny such an exquisite powerful magical weapon? Tell me, are you a traitor of Ji Chang?" As he said this, he shouted, "Come on, arrest him. It's better to catch the wrong person than to let him go." The surrounding guards shouted in unison and surrounded the old man, putting the long spears in their hands against his neck. Although Su Chan had seen that the old man had almost drawn the fire to them just now, she couldn't bear to see the old man suffer such an undeserved disaster. She pulled Li Yundong's arm and motioned for him to think of a way. Li Yundong saw that the matter was getting out of hand. He was frowning and thinking of a way to distract the guards when he suddenly saw the old man, who had been begging for mercy, suddenly burst into a bright light in his eyes. With a flip of his wrist, a 5-colored sword appeared in his hand in an instant. Li Yundong saw a flash of colorful light in front of him. In an instant, the guards surrounding the old man were torn into countless pieces. Some of their heads flew into the sky, some of their arms fell off, some of their legs were cut off, and some of their bodies were cut in half. They were in different states of misery, but without exception, their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. It seemed that even in death, they still couldn't believe that this old man, who was as humble as mud, was such a powerful master. The old man's humble appearance before and his amazing skills now formed a strong contrast. Not only did the guards on the city wall not react, but even Li Yundong and the others did not react for a while. They looked at the scene in front of them with their mouths agape, only to see that there was blood all around them. In an instant, it became a sea of blood. The old man killed the surrounding soldiers in an instant. He raised the five-colored sword in his hand and shouted sternly, "Since we have been exposed, let's attack. Kill King Zhou and Daji." At this time, the people next to him, who looked bitter, their clothes were torn, and their bodies were thin and their faces were pale, also shouted in unison. Their bones cracked, and in the blink of an eye, they became powerful cultivators. They held all kinds of powerful magical weapons in their hands, including knives, forks, swords, and halberds. They had all kinds of weapons and attacked the magnificent Zhaoga city crazily. Some of these people went straight into the city hole, and some flew to the city wall that was dozens of meters high. In the blink of an eye, they killed the guards on the city tower. But soon, the cultivation masters in Zhaoga city also reacted. They flew out one after another and fought with these people. The leader of the group looked at the center of his eyebrows and shouted angrily, "How dare the traitors of Ji Chang come here to court death? Kill!" It was Grand Tutor One, who would be called Thunder God in the future. After he shouted, many experts flew out from the city. They were densely packed, and in an instant, they overwhelmed the assassins in terms of numbers. The old man in the lead raised his long sword again, and the five-colored sword in his hand suddenly emitted a five-colored beam of light with a buzz. It rose into the sky, not only spreading out a huge five-colored halo, but also didn't dissipate. It stirred up the clouds in the sky, and it could be seen clearly from more than 100 miles away. The old man shouted loudly, "King Wu will rise, and King Zhou will fall. Kill the evildoer and get rid of the tyrant." After he shouted, there was a series of loud bangs in the city, as if many bombs had been buried. They exploded 3 times in a row, and Zhaoga city instantly turned into a sea of fire. Obviously, the spies hidden in the city had been activated. They set fires everywhere and cast spells. The city was in chaos. Su Chan, Zhou Qin, Wan Hongling, and Lin Miao were all dumbfounded at this time. They had never dreamed that the ordinary people around them, who looked like beggars, would turn into a flying master in the blink of an eye. Zhaoga city, which had just been immersed in the serene twilight, had now become a terrible battlefield. Su Chan stared blankly at the old man, whom she had felt infinite sympathy for just a moment ago, only to see him killing in and out of the crowd as if there was no one there. She swallowed hard and said dryly to Li Yundong, "Yundong, you are really amazing. You can control yourself. At a glance, you can see that this old man is on King Wuwang's side." Zhou Qin and Lin Miao also nodded like chickens pecking rice. They looked at Li Yundong with great admiration and said, "Yes, yes, master, you are so powerful. How did you know?" Wan Hongling also said with admiration, "Li, you are good. You have the fiery eyes." The heavenly eyes could see the changes in people and all the illusions in the world, but Li Yundong was the reincarnated Wisdom King. The immovable Wisdom King was famous for his fighting skills, and most of the 5 great magical powers of Buddhism were not used for fighting, so he was not proficient in them. He could feel the existence of danger, but it was difficult for him to say what these dangers were and see through such high-level illusions. This was what it meant to be specialized in. The immovable Wisdom King also had magic and methods that he did not know. Li Yundong didn't know that the old man was so powerful, nor did he know that the group of people around him had unique skills. The lowest cultivation among them was a Jinshan master. He stared blankly at the chaotic scene in front of him. He laughed dryly and said, I was just guessing." As Li Yundong spoke, he also felt guilty. He glared and thought to himself, "Damn, how could I know the true identity of these people? This is called a lucky hit." When Su Chan and the others saw Li Yundong's strange expression and tone, they couldn't help but feel suspicious. However, Wan Hongling couldn't care less at this time. She jumped up and said excitedly, "Hurry up, let's fish in troubled waters and catch Su Daiji." Chapter 9:12. Wan Hongling's words made Li Yundong look at her helplessly. He pointed to the scene of Zhaoga burning the city and said, "It's like this inside. Aren't you afraid of danger?" Although Wan Hongling often quarreled with Li Yundong and had always been unconvinced of him, she admired and even worshipped Li Yundong in her heart. It could be said that she had watched Li Yundong grow from nothing, from a rookie who had just started cultivating step by step to the great master who was famous in the world today. She had seen Li Yundong defeat the strong countless times with the weak. She had seen him fight against many alone and defeat the strong enemies in an impossible disadvantage. When Mount Tai was about to collapse and the building was about to collapse, he turned the tide again and again, holding up the sky with one arm. Although these masters of the Shang dynasty were powerful and numerous, Wan Hongling was born optimistic and had a blind trust in Li Yundong. She always felt that nothing would happen to him. Moreover, Li Yundong had now obtained the real body of Wisdom King, and his strength was earth-shattering. She really could not think of anyone in the world who could be his opponent. Therefore, Wan Hongling did not take the war in front of her seriously at all. As a modern person from 3,000 years ago, what had she not seen? Why would she be afraid of such a small scene? It was a piece of cake. Damn it. Wan Hongling waved her hand and smiled. The more dangerous the place, the safer it is. Besides, I accidentally came to Zhaoga of the Shang dynasty. I can't go back without seeing anything, can I? I have to see Su Daiji, the enchantress of ancient times. Otherwise, it won't be worth the ticket price. Zhou Qin, who was standing to one side, also looked at Li Yundong eagerly. Although she was calm, it was absolutely impossible to say that she was not curious at all when encountering such a thing. What does Su Daiji look like? Is she as beautiful as me? When a beautiful woman heard of another beautiful woman, most of them would have such a subconscious reaction at the first moment. No matter how smart a person was, there was no exception. Moreover, this woman was a peerless beauty who was famous throughout the ages. She was famous far and wide. Li Yundong glared at Wan Hongling and Zhou Qin, but just as he was about to scold them, he saw Su Chan gently pull his arm. Li Yundong turned his head and saw Su Chan say, "Yundong, go and have a look. Now is indeed a good opportunity." Li Yundong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Do you think you're shooting a movie or traveling here?" Wan Hongling looked down and saw that some of the heads of the soldiers who had been killed were resting in the sky. Their eyes were bulging, and the blood vessels seemed to have exploded in their eyes. Their deaths were extremely tragic. She was shocked, and only then did she feel a little scared. She quickly formed a palm with one hand, bowed, and said, "Amateus, everyone, you have a bad life in this life. You should die early and reincarnate early. I wish you a good reincarnation in your next life. I'll be there soon." After that, she raised her head and said, "Don't hesitate. In a while, King Wuwang and his men will enter the palace. At that time, you won't be able to see Daiji. It's a small matter that you can't see Daiji. If the mystical silver fox gets there first, wouldn't it be a big problem?" Li Yundong calmed himself down and thought carefully for a moment. Then he said, "You must follow me closely. You can't leave me even one step. Do you hear me?" Su Chan, Zhou Qin, Wan Hongling, and Lin Miao all nodded vigorously. Wan Hongling and Lin Miao couldn't help but show a trace of excitement in their eyes. Their cultivation was relatively shallow, so they couldn't understand the power of these masters. Li Yundong's cultivation had reached the realm of the unity of heaven and man. He was very clear about the strength of the other side. If he was alone, he would naturally not be afraid. He could break into the dragon's pool and the tiger's den if he wanted to. However, there were not only Su Chan and Zhou Qin beside him, but also Wan Hongling and Lin Miao, who were dragging him down, which made him worry. Li Yundong led Su Chan and the others slowly into the city under the cover of the goddess Nenya seal. As soon as they entered the city gate, they saw several figures fall from the city tower and fall beside Wan Hongling with a thud. Several corpses fell to the ground and were badly mutilated. Blood splashed everywhere, and Wan Hongling's face was covered with blood. She was so scared that she couldn't help screaming. She wiped her face hard with both hands and said angrily, "Bah, bah, it stinks. Who is it? Are you throwing corpses?" Her scream immediately attracted the attention of two burly cultivators on the city tower. They shouted, "Who's down there? Show yourself." Li Yundong glared at Wan Hongling angrily. "You little girl, can't you stop for a while?" He quickly winked at Zhou Qin and Su Chan, indicating that they should leave with him quickly. However, at this time, the two people on the city tower did not intend to let them go. One of them snorted angrily and said, "How dare you show off your insignificant skills? Show yourself." After that, he picked up a mirror in his hand and shone it at Li Yundong and the others. Almost there. A white light suddenly shot down from the mirror, immediately illuminating the figures of Li Yundong and the others, making it impossible for them to hide. Li Yundong had no choice but to turn around. Just as he was about to cup his hands and say, "You too, I'm just here to buy some soy sauce and hide. I'll leave in a while. You two take your time. I won't bother you." However, the other side refused to let them go. With a loud shout, they rushed toward Li Yundong. One of them was in the immortal Jinshin phase, and the other was in the immortal Jinshin phase. If it had been in the past, they would have been strong opponents for Li Yundong. However, Li Yundong didn't use much qi at this time. He pushed his palms toward the two people who were rushing at him like lightning. With two bangs, the palms of the three people collided. Suddenly, the two people's bodies shook, and with a scream, they were sent flying. But the two of them were really amazing. Just as their bodies were about to hit the wall behind them like cannonballs, they actually pushed their heels back, and the tips of their toes touched the corner of the wall. They converted the force of their forward momentum into upward momentum, and they jumped onto the wall in one fell swoop. The two of them hadn't expected that Li Yundong would be so strong as to send them flying as soon as they met. Their faces suddenly changed. They pointed at Li Yundong and said angrily, "You are helping the wicked. You will die a horrible death in the future." After saying that, they flashed to the side without saying a word. It was unknown whether they were looking for a place to heal their wounds or to call for help. Li Yundong quickly turned to Su Chan and said, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and go." Su Chan and the others seemed to wake up from a dream and followed Li Yundong into the streets of the city. At this time, Zhaoga City was already in chaos. There were people running around in panic everywhere. There were towering flames and deafening shouts everywhere. It was unknown how many spies of the Zhou dynasty had lurked in and were fanning the flames everywhere. Li Yundong and the others were dressed strangely. The men were tall and handsome, and the women were graceful and beautiful. Although it was night, they were very eye-catching against the light of the flames. After taking a few steps, they were stared at by another group of people. This group of people was obviously much larger than the previous two. There were 13 or 14 people, and all of them were in the Jinshin phase. The leader's eyes were as sharp as lightning, and he was a master of the lightning retribution phase. When this group of people saw Li Yundong, they were suddenly stunned, and then shouted angrily, "Stop, who are you?" Li Yundong sighed in his heart. He fixed his eyes on the clothes of the people opposite him and saw that they were dressed the same as the two people he had met before. They were all wearing gray linen gowns, with one arm bare and a headband on their heads. He said, "Don't get me wrong. We are the subordinates of King Wu. We are here to help you fight against King Zhou. Please do us a favor." Before he could finish his words, the leader said angrily, "King Wu is a bastard. You slandered my king, King Zhou. You are courting death. Kill him." Suddenly, more than a dozen people shouted angrily, and the weapons and powerful magical weapons in their hands smashed toward Li Yundong's head. Su Chan and Zhou Qin, who were standing to one side, were shocked. Just as they were about to fight, they saw Li Yundong slap the ground with his palm. Suddenly, the bluestone slabs on the ground were lifted up like a carpet. In an instant, a violent wave rolled up and rushed high, smashing toward the dozen people coming toward them like a collapsing pillar. The dozen people were shocked and hurriedly used the weapons and powerful magical weapons in their hands to protect their bodies. After they blocked this fierce blow, they took a closer look and found that Li Yundong and the others had disappeared. The leader was furious. "Chase after him." As he spoke, he chased along the street. After they left, Li Yundong and the others flashed out from a dark corner. Li Yundong glared at Wan Hongling and said, "This is your good idea. We have been in danger twice along the way. The more people we meet, the stronger they are. Will there be a gold immortal next time?" Wan Hongling smiled embarrassedly and said, "How would I know that we were so unlucky?" As she said this, she clapped her hands and said, "Don't worry, there won't be so many people. Let's go quickly." Li Yundong said angrily, "Go, where do we go?" Wan Hongling shrank her head and muttered in a low voice, "How would I know?" Li Yundong glared at her, turned to look at Zhou Qin, and said, "Where do you think we should go?" Zhou Qin calmed down, looked around carefully, and said, "Master, let's go directly to the palace. Hide along the way and take more dark and narrow alleys." Li Yundong nodded, turned around, and grabbed Su Chan's little hand. He whispered, "Follow me closely." Su Chan smiled sweetly and said, "Don't worry, I can protect myself." Li Yundong nodded and said, "I know." But even though he said this, he still held her hand tighter. They walked through the dark streets. On the way, they saw several people searching, but they all avoided them. Seeing the magnificent, towering palace of Dxian not far away, Wan Hongling couldn't help pointing at the palace excitedly and saying, "We're almost there. Hurry up, hurry up." As she said this, she quickly rushed in the direction of the palace. At this time, Li Yundong and the others were in a narrow and dark alley, with the mansions of the nobles on both sides. They passed through the narrow alley and suddenly saw a very spacious square in front of them. There were 9 incomparably huge square cauldrons placed in 9 different directions. In the middle, there were 5 huge round cauldrons placed in 5 different directions. In the middle, there was a towering statue of a god. It wore a crown on its head and held a sharp sword in its hand. Its eyes were fierce, and it looked like it was alive. As soon as Wan Hongling rushed out of the alley, she was so scared that she immediately stopped. She was stunned and looked in front of her in a daze. Li Yundong also rushed to the entrance of the alley, and suddenly his eyes widened. He subconsciously wanted to turn around and leave, but the street was so narrow that only one person could pass through. As soon as he stopped, Su Chan, Zhou Qin, and Lin Miao squeezed over one after another. "Hey, don't just stand there. Get out, get out." Seeing that the legendary King Zhou and Daji were not far away, the little girl was also a little excited. She followed Wan Hongling and urged them crazily. Seeing that Li Yundong was standing there in a daze, she stretched out her hand and pushed Li Yundong out. As soon as she pushed Li Yundong away, she only took a glance and was suddenly dumbfounded. Zhou Qin and Lin Miao, who were behind her, didn't know what had happened, but they pushed her out again in the same way. They came out one after another and looked at the square one by one. They were all stunned and speechless. Li Yundong turned his head and looked at Wan Hongling and Su Chan with a wry smile. "You guys have done me in." Chapter 9:13. This was none other than the core hinterland of Zhaoga City, which was also the famous Deer Terrace Pavilion. Usually, there were guards patrolling these places. Not to mention a person, not even a bird or a fly could fly in. But at this time, Zhaoga City was in chaos. The guards who usually guarded Deer Terrace Pavilion were busy quelling the chaos everywhere, and the security of Deer Terrace Pavilion had greatly decreased. But even so, the huge square of Deer Terrace Pavilion was still densely packed with people. These people were divided into two groups, with the 9-5 bronze tripod as the middle line. They faced each other and were clearly divided. On the west side of the square of the 9-5 bronze tripod stood a large group of lightning retribution masters. Although they were all different in height, fat and thin, and their clothes were a little shabby, their eyes were full of divine light, as if they were about to spit out lightning. On the east side stood a golden-armored strongman. This golden-armored strongman looked extremely tall at first glance, half a body taller than the people around him. He leaned on a huge sword and looked down at the ragged rebels in front of him. His face was cold and he didn't say a word, looking extremely dignified. A lightning retribution master had earth-shattering power. With a raise of his hand, he could summon the wind and rain, and change the world. When this large group of lightning retribution masters stood together, the momentum and pressure produced were really too terrifying. Even a top expert like Li Yundong was shocked by the suffocating pressure in front of him and didn't dare to act rashly. At this time, the amazing shouts and noises of Zhaoga City seemed to have gone far away. Deer Terrace Pavilion became extremely quiet. The dark clouds in the sky quickly gathered from all directions and hovered over the top of Deer Terrace Pavilion. The wind slowly blew around. The people on both sides were confronting each other. They both knew that if the other side made a move, it would definitely be an earth-shattering blow. Therefore, they both appeared particularly cautious and were looking at each other vigilantly and nervously. The air seemed to be filled with a dry smell of gunpowder. As long as a spark jumped out, it could immediately ignite the whole place and turn the world upside down. But at this time, Li Yundong and the others suddenly broke in. When these people saw Li Yundong and the other uninvited guests coming out from the side, they immediately looked at them in unison. There were probably hundreds of Thunder Retribution and Jinshin masters among these people. With so many eyes looking at them at the same time, it was really like hundreds of mountains falling from the sky, pressing down on Li Yundong and the others. Although Zhou Qin and Su Chan were behind Li Yundong, they were so shocked that they trembled when they saw so many eyes staring at them. Their chests felt as if they had been cut by a knife. They were in so much pain that they almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Li Yundong was shocked. He immediately took a step forward and stood in front of them like a giant. Although the pressure that had almost made Zhou Qin and Su Chan collapse was as fierce as a monstrous wave, Li Yundong was like an unshakable mountain. No matter how fierce the waves were, he remained motionless, and his expression did not change at all. The people on both sides were shocked at the same time. None of them knew Li Yundong and the others. They all secretly thought that they were the other side's helpers, so they were secretly vigilant. The leader of the guard standing on the side of Deer Terrace Pavilion thought to himself, "This person's cultivation is so high that I have never seen anyone in my life. Only my king, King Di Xian, can defeat him. In addition, I'm afraid that even Grand Tutor 1 is no match for him." The rebels on the side of the Western Zhou also looked at Li Yundong in surprise and doubt. The leader of the group thought to himself, "This person is so powerful. Could he be Tong Tian of the Three Pure Ones?" The Three Pure Ones represented the three major forces. The leader of Ren's school, Taishang Laojun, only had one disciple who could be ordered around, so his power was the weakest. The honored lord of the origin of the Chan school only had 12 disciples. Although these 12 disciples were all powerful figures, they all liked to cultivate in seclusion. Although Tong Tian ranked last among the Three Pure Ones, he was forthright and chivalrous. Ancestor Hong Jun's love for him was far greater than that of the honored lord of the origin and Taishang Laojun. This could be seen from the 4 immortal killing swords that Hong Jun had taught Tong Tian. In this era, Tong Tian was a strengthened version of Lord Meng Chang. He never refused anyone who came to seek refuge with him. If someone came to be his disciple, he would accept them without hesitation, even murderers who committed murder and arson. If someone came to ask for money, he would immediately give them as much as they wanted. His behavior made the power of the tribe of Severity increase exponentially, far surpassing that of Taishang Laojun and the honored Lord of the Origin. In the Shang dynasty, almost every family believed in the tribe of Severity. Only a few upper-class nobles occasionally believed in the tribe of Severity. The dominance of the tribe of Severity aroused the dissatisfaction of Taishang Laojun and the honored Lord of the Origin. Even ancestor Hong Jun was somewhat vigilant. "Damn it, you are my disciple. What do you want to do with so many people? Do you want to sit in my position?" Therefore, when Taishang Laojun and the honored Lord of the Origin joined hands to deal with Tong Tian, ancestor Hong Jun turned a blind eye. The tribe of Severity led by Tong Tian was deeply rooted in the Shang dynasty. Therefore, in this war between humans and gods, Tong Tian helped King Zhou. Taishang Laojun and the honored Lord of the Origin, as challengers who wanted to overthrow the current power structure, naturally helped King Wu of Western Zhou and his men who rebelled. In the beginning, the patriarchs of the three pure ones were only controlling the battle from behind. On both sides, there were only ordinary soldiers killing each other. But as the war went on, cultivators began to intervene. Now, both sides were bare-chested. Only the patriarchs of the three pure ones did not join the battle themselves. In the eyes of the rebels of Western Zhou, they had now entered the hinterland of Zhaoga. If Tong Tian did not take action now, the situation would be difficult to reverse. Therefore, the man who could remain calm under the collective pressure of so many masters must be Tong Tian, one of the patriarchs of the three pure ones. The cultivators of the Shang dynasty thought that Li Yundong was a helper of Western Zhou, so they were very afraid. The cultivators of Western Zhou thought that Li Yundong was Tong Tian, so they were even more vigilant. At this time, both sides had an idea. Without saying a word, their eyes flashed and they shouted in unison, throwing countless magic arts and magic weapons at Li Yundong. Li Yundong's cultivation had stunned them all at once, so this time, he was really fighting to the death. He used the most sinister, vicious, terrifying and fierce magic, and threw out the most powerful magic weapons. At this time, Zhou Qin and Su Chan had just recovered from their previous injuries. They bent slightly, covered their chests, and rubbed the stagnant breath in their chests. At this time, they saw the sky suddenly shining brightly, and countless magic arts were bombarding them. There were red, yellow, blue, green, and purple lights of all colors. There were all kinds of magic arts of gold, wood, water, fire, and earth. There were also countless magic weapons mixed in the various colors of the divine light. These Dharma spells and Dharma treasures were so overwhelming that they almost filled their vision. They couldn't even see the sky. Ruan Hongling and Lin Miao were so scared that they took a few steps back, and their eyes flashed with despair. Li Yundong's face froze, and his hands quickly pinched the immovable Wisdom King's fundamental seal. He shouted and put his palms in front of him. With a bang, a golden statue of the immovable Wisdom King appeared in front of him. The vertical eye between the eyebrows of the immovable Wisdom King slowly opened with a hiss, and his eyes spewed out divine light. In an instant, a blue sea of fire burned in front of him, like a huge barrier. Any magic weapons and magic arts that rushed into the blue sea of fire were immediately burned to ashes. This shock caused the two groups of people to be dumbstruck. What they didn't know was that Li Yundong in front of them had already obtained the reincarnation of the Wisdom King's Dharmakaya. It was equivalent to the Wisdom King himself descending to the world. The power of his every move was far beyond ordinary people's imagination. Su Chan and the others knew that after Li Yundong retrieved the Wisdom King's Dharmakaya, his strength must have made a qualitative leap, but they didn't know how powerful he was. They hadn't seen Li Yundong fight with anyone with the power of the Wisdom King. But at this time, when he fought, it was really earth-shattering, especially when the opponents were hundreds of lightning retribution masters. Ruan Hongling looked at Li Yundong with her mouth open and tongue-tied. She said, "Is it so exaggerated? These are all lightning retribution masters, not Yang spirit masters." Zhou Qin's face was also full of disbelief. When she first saw so many lightning retribution masters, She thought they were dead for sure. But now it seemed that Li Yundong was facing the siege of so many masters, but he was still motionless. He was indeed the immovable Wisdom King. Zhou Qin also widened her eyes and stammered, "Master. How can he be so powerful? Shouldn't the cultivators of this era be more powerful?" The Shang dynasty was the last chaotic period in the history of the Chinese cultivation world. After the end of the War of Gods investiture, China entered the Zhou dynasty, and the order of the heaven realm and the mortal realm was established. Almost all the gods in the world were recalled to the heaven realm. Therefore, for the first time in the Chinese cultivation world, a large number of magic and magic treasures were lost. From the Zhou dynasty to the Spring and Autumn Warring States period, and then to the Qin and Han dynasties, it was a period of vacuum in the Chinese cultivation world. From the extreme prosperity of the Xia and Shang dynasties, the Chinese cultivation world fell to the bottom in an instant, and there was a situation of extreme decline. During this period, hundreds of schools of thought contended in the world, and hundreds of flowers bloomed. Various sects were established one after another, which also made the people have many beliefs, and the good and bad cultivators among the people were intermingled. It was not until the Han dynasty that the great grandmaster Gu Hong appeared and founded the Danding sect. Zhang Daoling, a once-in-a-thousand-years genius, founded the Zhengyi sect, a great cultivation sect that had been passed down for nearly 2,000 years. At this time, the Chinese cultivation world ushered in a second prosperity. This kind of prosperity continued in the tortuous course of history until the end of the Ming dynasty and the beginning of the Qing dynasty, which caused the Chinese cultivation world to slowly fall to the bottom again. It was not until the establishment of the Republic of China and the New China that the cultivation world completely fell to the bottom. During this period, the Chinese cultivation world had lost countless magic and magic treasures. Therefore, modern cultivators had always subconsciously thought that ancient cultivators must be more powerful. However, Zhou Qin and the others had ignored the fact that Li Yunyang was already the incarnation of Wisdom King and had 100% of the power of Wisdom King. The power of Wisdom King not only came from Sakyamuni Buddha, but also from the huge power of faith. Moreover, although the magic and magic treasures of the Chinese cultivation world had been lost in the long river of history, in this long process, there had also been countless amazing cultivators who had created many powerful cultivation methods and magic. Especially in the Xia and Shang dynasties, there were spiritual mountains and rivers everywhere in China, which caused a large number of cultivators to pick these herbs and treasures excessively to refine elixirs or magic treasures. However, the selection of the medicinal materials of these magic medicines and magic treasures was all in units of thousands of years, or even hundreds of years. However, the number of people was always increasing. Slowly, there were too many monks and not enough porridge. Where could they find so many elixirs of thousands of years and hundreds of years? It was also because of this that the Chinese cultivators were running out of resources, and the school of alchemy gradually declined. Zhang Buduan, the founder of the Jindan sect, appeared in the southern Song dynasty. He pointed out that since there were fewer and fewer elixirs, there was no need for us to seek the great way from the outside world. The real great way of Jindan was in our own bodies. At this time, the Naidan sect rose. Although the Naidan yang spirit cultivated by the Naidan cultivators was relatively slow, its shinshi was vigorous and majestic, far better than that of those who cultivated by taking elixirs. As long as the difference in strength was not too great, when the two sides fought, the external alchemy sect would almost collapse at the first touch and be completely vulnerable. Therefore, after the southern Song dynasty, the strength of the Naidan sect surpassed that of the external alchemy at an astonishing speed. Although Li Yundong had entered the Tao with the external alchemy, he was essentially a Naidan cultivator. Moreover, the Jindan yang spirit in his body at this time was condensed and majestic, unparalleled in the world. If he claimed to be second, no one would dare to claim to be first. At this time, the cultivators of the Shang dynasty did not cultivate Naidan. Almost all of them took elixirs or became immortals without exception. Therefore, in terms of Jinqi and Yang spirit, they were no match for Li Yundong. When Li Yundong showed his ability, he immediately shocked the whole audience. Both sides were so scared that they didn't dare to make a move. Although they both wanted to tear each other into pieces, they didn't dare to act rashly when there was a great master who was hard to distinguish between friend and foe watching from the side. At this time, the leader of the guard standing on the steps of the Deer Terrace Pavilion shouted in fear, "Who are you? Tell me your name." The leader of the Western Zhou rebels blurted out almost at the same time, "Aren't you Tong Tian's sect leader? Then who are you?" You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.